Chapter 836. Thinking of this, Lan Zi no longer hesitated. The two blades in her hands joined together in the middle, and the two blades actually merged into one. Lu Yi had a trump card, but so did she. Her two blades were already extremely long. Even Lu Ye's mountain blade was about 30 to 40% shorter than them. It was difficult for ordinary cultivators to control such spirit weapons. Only someone with a tall figure like Lan Zi could use them freely. At this moment, the two blades merged into one. Although the length did not change, the blade clearly became heavier. She could see that the Golden Corpse King's physique was strong. Ordinary slashes were meaningless, so she prepared to increase the killing power of her spirit weapons. However, in this way she had to sacrifice a certain amount of speed. She took a light breath and her chest rose and fell. The blade light on the blade shone brightly, and her whole person seemed to have merged into the blade light. She brazenly slashed at the Golden Corpse King. The timing of this slash was just right. It was when the giant armor was entangled with the Golden Corpse King, and the opponent had no time to be distracted. With a bang, the Golden Corpse King was actually cut down by this slash. When the long blade fell, Lan Zi's eyes lit up because she had finally injured this powerful enemy. Although the wound was not big, it had indeed caused damage to the Golden Corpse King. This was enough. As long as she could injure the opponent, there would be a chance to kill the opponent. Unlike before, she could not see any hope at all. The giant armor was once again sent flying, and a strong sense of danger shrouded Lan Zi. The injured Golden Corpse King was enraged. It turned to look at her and stretched out a claw, grabbing at her chest. Facing such a fierce attack, Lan Zi did not retreat. Instead, she advanced as if she was afraid that she would not die quickly enough. She took a step forward, raised the long blade in her hand and slashed down again. It was not that she was not afraid of death, but she had already caught a glimpse of Lu Ye's movements from the corner of her eye. She believed that Lu Yi would not let her down. Just when the Golden Corpse King's sharp claws were only 3 inches away from her heart, a fiery red blade light swept over. The powerful force forcibly changed the trajectory of the Golden Corpse King's claw, causing the claw to brush past Lan Zi's clothes and tear off a large piece of cloth, revealing the dark golden soft armor she wore. The heavy long sword landed on the Golden Corpse King's shoulder armor. The heavy blow enraged the Golden Corpse King. It raised its hand and swept a palm towards Lan Zi. She didn't dare to be careless and hurriedly retreated. However, her abdomen was still swept by the palm wind and she groaned. Without waiting for the Golden Corpse King to exterminate them, Lu Yi slashed down again. The bloodstained spirit patterns continued to play their role, allowing his aura and even his strength to increase step by step. At first it was difficult for him to take a blow from the Golden Corpse King, but now he could barely do it. Although he would still be repelled, he was not as miserable as before. In the midst of the fierce battle, Lu Yi opened his mind and spread out his perception. The strength of the Golden Corpse King was a little strange. When the 8-man team of Kyushu was surrounded by the zombie horde, he had fought with the Golden Corpse King for a moment. At that time, although he felt that the Golden Corpse King was strong enough, he was not strong to this extent. If that was not the case, he would not have brought only the giant armor to kill the Golden Corpse King. At that time, if the Golden Corpse King could display such powerful strength, everyone in the 8-man team would have died except for him. Even he did not have absolute confidence in escaping. After all, they were not facing just the Golden Corpse King at that time, there were countless zombie horde. At this point in the fierce battle, Lu Yi had vaguely sensed the problem. There must be something here that could increase the Golden Corpse King's strength by a large margin. Lan Zi said that the Golden Corpse King was waiting here because he was waiting for the end of a king's battle. In fact, that was not the case. It was only here that the Golden Corpse King could unleash strength that exceeded his original level. If he left this place he would be strong, but not to this extent. What was it? However, even if he pushed his perception to the limit, it was difficult to find out. He could only vaguely feel that there was an invisible force constantly pouring into the Golden Corpse King's body. After a while, the light of hope in Lan Zi's eyes was extinguished again. At this point in the battle, whether it was her Lu Yi or giant armor, they had all used their full strength, but at most they could only cause some insignificant injuries to the Golden Corpse King. It was simply a fool's dream to want to kill the Golden Corpse King with such power. Although she was unwilling to admit it, she had to admit that she had thought of things too simply before. Originally, the strength that Lu Yi could display was gradually increasing, making her think that they would definitely win this battle. However, at this point she had already noticed one thing, and that was that there was a limit to Lu Ye's improvement. Compared to the beginning, Lu Ye's strength had indeed improved a lot. The speed and strength of his attacks were not comparable to the beginning. However, even so, he could only barely contend against the Golden Corpse King and was unable to win. Among the three of them, Lu Yi was the main force in killing the enemy. She could not do much, and at most she could restrain the Golden Corpse King. As for Giant Armor, he was the one who was beaten the most. However, no matter how hard he was beaten, he could immediately pounce on again and continue to be beaten even more ferociously. However, even Lu Yi, the main force, could only do so much, so how could he kill the Golden Corpse King? Lu Yi, you can't do this. In the midst of the confrontation, Lan Zi gritted her teeth and shouted. Since they were destined to not be able to kill the Golden Corpse King, they should retreat as soon as possible. However, Lu Yi did not seem to hear her. As his figure moved, he continued to exchange blows with the Golden Corpse King. The benefits brought by the bloodstained spirit pattern had already reached its limit. Lan Zi's perception was not wrong. This spirit pattern could no longer bring any greater improvement to Lu Yi. However, he still had another stronger trump card that he could use at any time. Such a long confrontation was enough for him to accumulate power. Hu Pe, who had been crouching on his shoulder silently and fusing with his blood, qi and spirit power, was also ready. However, before he found the reason why the Golden Corpse King was so powerful, he did not dare to use it at will. The benefits brought by the bloodstained spirit pattern were not without a price. His physical strength and spirit power were both being consumed rapidly. If he used another stronger trump card, even if he had the spirit storage ring to replenish his spirit power at any time, the consumed physical strength would not be able to be replenished. At that time he had to kill the Golden Corpse King in the shortest time possible and end the battle, or else there would be great risks. Therefore he had been looking for the reason why the Golden Corpse King had become so strong. As long as he found it, he would completely erupt and fight to the death. However, now it seemed that it was still too much to ask. Just as Lu Yi was about to listen to Lan Zi's suggestion and retreat first, the Golden Corpse King suddenly spoke. "Mere ants. You dare to be impudent." After fighting with Lu Yi and the others for so long, the Golden Corpse King had not killed a single person, which made him extremely angry. He was naturally clear about how strong the cultivators of the Peerless Continent were. Before seeing the 8-man team of 9 regions, he had never dared to imagine that there were so many powerful cultivators in this world. He was actually a little absent-minded. Perhaps he had been asleep for too long and some changes had occurred in the outside world? No matter what the reason was, the battle that he thought he could easily win had been tormented to this point, which made him furious. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his mouth and roared. Roar. Roar. A roar that was even more shocking than his roar immediately followed. It was Giant Armor, who had just been sent flying by him, that pounced back crazily. At this moment, Giant Armor's entire body was wrapped in a rich blood aura. His spiritual power surged violently, and his originally burly figure inexplicably swelled up, becoming even taller and stronger. His messy hair seemed to have invisible thunderbolts swimming around, each strand standing upright. Even his eyes, which had always been simple and honest, were filled with bloody light. It was like an ancient fierce beast that had broken free and was venting its anger. After blocking the blow of the Golden Corpse King, Lu Yi, who had retreated and was preparing to attack again, was slightly surprised. He had never seen Giant Armor like this. For a moment he did not know what was wrong. After taking a glance, he could not help but frown. This guy was angry? Giant Armor was furious. He was not angry because he was injured, but because as a body cultivator who charged and broke through the enemy lines and acted as the strongest protection for his companions, he was angry because he was sent flying by the enemy again and again. As a body cultivator, his head could be broken, his blood could flow, but his body could not retreat. This was the greatest pride of body cultivators in the 9 regions and also the most basic persistence. Body cultivators faced the most dangerous enemies directly. If a body cultivator retreated, what would happen to his companions behind him? Although Giant Armor did not come into contact with many people, when he followed Sima Yang to make a living, Sima Yang had taught him this principle more than once. All along Giant Armor had done the same. When he joined hands with his companions to kill the enemy, his body was the most reliable shield for his companions. Although Sima Yang did not have a good character and had always been attached to Giant Armor like a leech, using him to earn all kinds of cultivation resources, it had to be said that he had played a very good role in teaching Giant Armor on this matter. But now, in the face of a powerful enemy like the Golden Corpse King, he was sent flying again and again. He did not have Lu Ye's fierce means of killing enemies, nor did he have Lan Zi's flexible and vigorous figure. If he could not even display his greatest strength, Then what was the point of his persistence and cultivation for so many years? He asked himself honestly and was seething with anger. Taking a big step forward, the palace that had already become ruins suddenly shook. Every step giant armor took caused the earth to tremble and the ruins to move. At this moment he did not seem like a person, but a mountain that was carrying an extremely heavy weight. Lu Ye's eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. He did not know what had happened to giant armor, but it seemed like he had comprehended some incredible ability after being angry. He could clearly feel that the spiritual energy in giant armor's body was rapidly blending with the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This was also the reason why he looked so heavy. It was not that he had really become as heavy as a mountain, but that he had achieved this effect with the help of the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This was an extremely mysterious secret technique. Just like the divine pillar that he had set up in the five-element city in Silver Snake Valley, after it had merged with the ley lines, the cultivators of the five great clans could no longer pull out the divine pillar. It was the same principle. It was not that the divine pillar was difficult to move, but if one wanted to pull out the divine pillar, they would have to shake the entire ley lines connected to it. Chapter 837. With the abilities of the cultivators of the five great families, how could they do such a thing? The Golden Corpse King was also surprised by the change in the giant armor. He couldn't help but frown. At this moment, the giant armor actually gave him a strong sense of oppression. This made him feel very incredulous. After a few steps, the giant armor was already in front of King Az. Its fist, which was the size of a casserole, fiercely punched towards the Golden Corpse King. It smashed over. The Golden Corpse King also raised his fist to meet it. The moment the two fists touched, the giant armor suddenly turned his fist into a palm. Boom! The fist and palm collided and the power of the collision exploded. A circle of air waves visible to the naked eye surged in all directions. The Golden Corpse King's eyes, which were glowing with golden light, shrunk slightly as a look of disbelief flashed across his face. This was because this time the burly man who had been sent flying by him was not sent flying by him like before. His upper body only leaned back slightly and he was safe and sound. The giant armor's feet seemed to be nailed to the ground, not moving at all. The violent power from the Golden Corpse King spread through his arms to his entire body, causing his bones to emit cracking sounds. The small cracks that were already densely packed on the surface of his body suddenly became even denser, and a large amount of blood spurted out from those cracks. It looked as if his entire body would shatter at any moment. However, giant armor's eyes were unprecedentedly clear. An unprecedented viciousness and determination appeared in the depths of his eyes. He bared his white fangs and grinned at the Golden Corpse King who was right in front of him. "I've caught you." Pa! The fan-like hand instantly clenched tightly grabbing the Golden Corpse King's fist that had smashed into his palm. Not good. For the first time since the battle started, the Golden Corpse King revealed a look of shock. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be let go of in the slightest. In his eyes, the burly man who could only endure his vicious beating would have such a strange change at such a critical moment. By the time he reacted and wanted to withdraw his hand, it was already too late. Too late. In a competition of strength alone, none of the three people present were his opponent. Even if he used the effect of the bloodstained spirit pattern, Lu Yi, who had reached the pinnacle, could not do it, let alone the giant armor. If the giant armor grabbed him like this, the Golden Corpse would be able to break free at will. But after a strange change, he comprehended a mysterious secret. After the technique, the giant armor's restraints also became unbreakable. However, the Golden Corpse King struggled a few times and found that he couldn't break free from the giant armor's grip. He flew into a rage and quickly clenched his other hand into a fist. Like a torrential downpour, they smashed towards giant armor's chest. Although the giant armor tried its best to resist, the speed of the two was too slow. They weren't even on the same level. There was nothing Ben could do. Furthermore, because he had to clamp down on the Golden Corpse King, he didn't even have the space to dodge. In his anger, he had comprehended a mysterious secret technique. Although he would no longer be sent flying by his enemies, the beatings he received seemed to have become more vicious. Luckily, Lan Zi came out from the side and slashed with her long saber, taking some of the pressure off the giant armor. On the other side, Lu Ye's voice also sounded. Well done. Previously, he was prepared to listen to Lan Zi's suggestion and retreat temporarily, mainly because he had been unable to find the source of the Golden Corpse King's strength. He did not dare to use his final trump card easily. After all, the Golden Corpse King was not a target and would not just stand there and let him attack it. In fact, the Golden Corpse King's reaction speed was very fast. According to the previous situation, even if he used his last resort, he might not be able to do anything to the Golden Corpse King. He might even put the three of them in danger. But at this moment, the Golden Corpse King had really become a target. Why would Lu Yi hesitate? At this time, the source of the Golden Corpse King's strength was no longer important. As long as he could get rid of the Golden Corpse King before the giant armor fell, he would win this battle. Roar! With a thought, Hu Pe, who had been crouching on his shoulder, sensed something. He opened his mouth and roared, followed by a bloody light. Lan Zi, who was attacking to restrain the Golden Corpse King's energy, was shocked. She did not know what had happened on Lu Ye's side. She turned her head to look. She saw that the place where Lu Yi was already shrouded in a bloody light. The bloody light was so thick that it was solid like a flowing pool of blood. In the blood, Lu Ye's blurry figure was faintly reflected. However, at this moment, his figure looked a little distorted, a little strange. A terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the ball of blood light. Lan Zi's aura trembled. Previously, when she felt the Golden Corpse King's powerful aura, she felt that it was not in the category of the Cloud River tier. However, at this moment, the aura that erupted from Lu Ye's side was not inferior to the Golden Corpse King's at all. This guy still had a trump card? Just as this thought flashed through her mind, the body E of the Dao barbecue outfit must have the eyesight that I don't have. She could see a rough idea. She was slightly busy because Lu Ye's current state was too strange. Lu Ye's entire body surface was covered with a layer of Nan Mei visible to the naked eye. The complete fusion of the P3 river and the Ling power to form the E-Camp's color energy was extremely solid, so much so that it was completely in his present big net of 2mh type 2 things that looked like tiger's ears. Even behind him there was also a layer of Nan Mei. There was a blood-colored tiger tail that looked like a willow tree. In this instant, Lan Zi sensed that Kong 3S was not a person, but a beast that came out of the eternal abyss. The ancient vicious beast that rushed out was filled with endless ferocious might. Master, I'm here? The clear and childish voice rang out in Lu Ye's heart, almost breaking Lu Ye's heart. Killing intent. Only then did he remember that after the conversation with the E-Camp 1 Cloud Flow, Hu Pe was able to cultivate and communicate with the world in his heart. The last time Hu Pe did this he was shocked. However, the secret technique of good transformation had been activated by the E-Book twice. The last time it was activated was in the hunting ground. For a moment he had forgotten about this matter. Hurry up and save giant armor. The big guy is being beaten up so badly, Hu Pe said. Usually, other than Lu Ten and E, only Bao Xing and A was beaten up badly. Hu Pe was very angry. At the same time the ball was nearly strong enough to stab Sanjia's side. His figure was not even 001. Under the beast form, everything around him seemed to have slowed down. Lu Yi had experienced this feeling before. He knew that it was not the outside world that had slowed down, but his own thoughts and intentions. Lu Ye's fighting style was extremely violent, giving people a huge sense of oppression. Now this feeling was even stronger. It was so strong that even if it was not targeted at him, Lan Zi could not help but hold her breath. Beast form. Lan Zi instantly reacted. She had also experienced the secret realm of the realm of beasts. At that time she had even cooperated with Lu Yi to kill the enemy. The strength of the Black Tortoise sect was still vivid in her mind. How could she be unfamiliar with the strongest secret technique of the realm of beasts that belonged to the beast taming school? Therefore Shi Yanjing could see what was going on with Lu Ye's current state. This was clearly activating the beast secret transformation technique. However, unlike the ordinary transformation of the ox, Lu Yi himself did not show any demonic characteristics. Some of the demonic characteristics only appeared in the form of the fusion of blood energy and spiritual power. This guy hid it so deeply. His senses became faster. This was the result of his sudden increase in strength. The spiritual power and blood energy around his body advanced intensely. Wrapped in an indestructible momentum, this saber stabbed straight at the Golden Corpse King's eye socket. Since the beginning of the battle, even if the giant armor clamped down, the Golden Corpse King, who had only been slightly flustered and did not have the slightest sense of danger, finally felt a great sense of danger in his heart. The three humans in front of him would not be too big for him. If he could not kill them, he naturally would not have too much of a sense of danger. A sense of danger. Until this moment. He could clearly feel that this saber strike could threaten him. Unable to move his body, the Golden Corpse King hurriedly tilted his head, trying to avoid this straight stab. However, Lu Ye's reaction speed at this moment was far faster than normal. The moment the Golden Corpse King tilted his head, the trajectory of the long saber also changed randomly. A spiritual light flashed on the pitch-black blade, and under the blessing of the double-peak sharp spirit pattern, it revealed a fierce killing intent. The Golden Corpse King was shocked. Although Lu Ye's performance was not bad previously, he could not keep up with his reaction speed. This was also the reason why he could always have the upper hand. But at this moment this advantage was gone. It was too late to dodge. The Golden Corpse King could only instantly close the eye that was targeted. The next moment the long saber pierced his eyelid. It was as if gold and iron had collided, making an ear-piercing sound of friction. The Golden Corpse King leaned his head back, dissipating the force of this stab. Rotten blood splattered and the Golden Corpse King roared. Although the blade didn't directly pierce his head, it almost blinded him. If he hadn't reacted in time, he would have been in deep trouble. Even at this moment, his left eye felt as if it had been ruthlessly gouged by a heavy blow. His eyeball was in extreme pain. Although it was not too damaged, he could not see for a while. In particular, corpse blood flowed out of the pierced eyelid, covering the light in his eyes. He's still not dead? Lan Zi was shocked. Originally, when she saw Lu Ye's terrifying improvement, coupled with the Golden Corpse King being clamped in place by the giant armor, she thought that this battle was already in the bag. But now it seemed that there was still a bitter fight to be had. Without any hesitation, she charged forward with her saber. Although there was a limit to what she could do in such a situation, if she could restrain the Golden Corpse King a little, then she would play a role. Cut it, quickly cut it, master. Use your tyrant saber. Hu Po's voice continued to ring in his mind. It was rare for him to communicate with Lu Yi like this, so the 2 times Lu Yi used the beast transformation secret technique, Hu Po would chatter non-stop like a chatterbox. However, its voice was still that of a child, so when it said such murderous words, it more or less gave people a strange feeling. Under Hu Po's urging and guidance, Lu Ye's figure was like a graceful swan as she circled around the Golden Corpse King. Streaks of Ling He's blade flashed from different angles, either slashing or stabbing straight ahead. Lan Zi was also supporting and restraining him from the side. The giant armor was completely freed. Originally he was fixed in place, unmoving like a mountain and could only become a target, but at this moment, how could the Golden Corpse King be in the mood to pay attention to him? Almost all of his energy was transferred to dealing with Lu Ye's attacks. Chapter 838. Her body was like a rainbow as she moved around. The mountain saber was constantly flashing with light, and the sharp spirit patterns were almost always maintained. Wherever the blade went, there was nothing it could not overcome. Even the Golden Corpse King's powerful physique could not withstand Lu Ye's current killing power. Pieces of flesh and blood were sliced off, and in just 10 breaths of time, Lu Yi had activated the beast transformation secret technique and the Golden Corpse King's flesh and blood had been sliced off, revealing the golden bones in many places. Lan Zi was excited. If the situation continued to develop like this, it would not be long before the Golden Corpse King died. However, just as she was thinking this, the Golden Corpse King suddenly turned around and looked at the huge armor before it. Then it opened its ferocious mouth and as it roared, a mass of dense golden fog gushed out from its mouth. The instant the golden fog left its mouth, it exploded with a loud bang and filled the surroundings. Everyone's figures were swallowed up in an instant. Origin source corpse poison. Lan Zi's expression changed. Some slightly stronger corpse race members could use origin source corpse poison, so how could the Golden Corpse King, as the strongest corpse race member, not be able to? Yang Yuan had suffered a great loss before. In fact, when she first fought with the Golden Corpse King, Lan Zi had been vigilant about this and tried her best not to be directly injured by the Golden Corpse King. According to her previous experience, origin source corpse poison required a corpse race member to cause direct damage to a human and inject the poison through the wound for it to be effective. However, looking at the Golden Corpse King's current posture, his origin source corpse poison seemed to have another mystery. Even if it did not cause the most direct damage, once it was sprayed out and wrapped in the poisonous mist, it would corrode. The 3 people present, whether it was Lan Zi, Giant Armor, or Lu Yi, were all injured to some extent. When the golden poisonous mist filled the surroundings, Lan Zi could clearly feel a strange force invading her body through her wounds. Even if she urged her spirit power, she could not stop it. In an instant she felt some unusual changes in her body. The Golden Corpse King did not use origin source corpse poison until now. Obviously he also sensed that the situation was not good. Doing so must have consumed a lot of his energy. This was indeed the case. After spitting out that mouthful of origin source corpse poison, the Golden Corpse King's aura clearly fell by a bit. Before she could rejoice, Lan Zi hurriedly took out the spirit pill refined by Wuxia and swallowed it, trying to suppress the outbreak of the corpse poison. But she quickly discovered that the effect of the medicinal pill was minuscule. It wasn't that Wuxia's spirit pills were useless, but the Golden Corpse King's corpse poison was too powerful. Although the spirit pill could suppress the origin corpse poison used by ordinary corpse clan members, it could not suppress the corpse poison of the Golden Corpse King. Quick, kill it! Lan Zi shouted as her attacks became even more ferocious. In such a situation they could only end the battle quickly. If they could not get rid of the Golden Corpse King before the corpse poison broke out, the three of them would be turned into corpses. The Golden Corpse King's appearance became even more miserable. Under Lu Ye's continuous attacks, there was almost no place on his body that was unscathed. As the knife light flashed, he was like a piece of pork on a chopping board, constantly having his flesh and blood cut off. Originally, he thought that using the origin corpse poison would make these three humans retreat, giving him a chance to catch his breath. Unexpectedly, not only did it not work, it made his situation even more dangerous. At this moment, his greatest difficulty was that he was restrained on the spot by the giant armor, unable to move. Facing Lu Ye's violent attacks, he did not even have the space to move or dodge. If that was not the case, how could he be so miserable? If this situation continued to develop, he did not know when these three humans in front of him would be turned into corpses, but he was afraid that he would really die here. How could he be willing to accept this? Roar! With a roar, a resolute expression flashed in the Golden Corpse King's eyes. He ignored Lan Zi's entanglement and ignored Lu Ye's killing move. Instead, he raised his palm like a knife, and fiercely slashed at the giant armor. Pucci, corpse blood splattered, but the giant armor was unscathed. This was because the Golden Corpse King's attack was not aimed at him, but his own arm that was restrained. With the price of severing his own arm, the Golden Corpse King finally broke free from his restraints and regained his freedom. Oh no! When Lan Zi saw this, her heart sank. She hurriedly slashed down, but the Golden Corpse King easily dodged. Freed from his restraints, the Golden Corpse King finally showed his rapid speed. That was a speed that surpassed the Cloud River tier. Even a sword cultivator like Mu Qingyun could not do anything to him in this kind of situation. Just when Lan Zi thought that she was going to be killed, the Golden Corpse King did not care about her, and directly swept out from the side. Behind him, the figure of Lu Yi, who was wrapped in an orange light, could not be shaken off. Only the present Lu Yi could keep up with the Golden Corpse King's speed. The scene suddenly became strange. The Golden Corpse King, who had regained his freedom, fled with his head lowered. Lu Yi chased after him and slashed down with his saber, leaving scars of varying depths on his back. However, he was unable to completely kill him in a short time. Although Lan Zi wanted to help, she could not keep up with the rhythm of Lu Yi and the Golden Corpse King. She had strength, but it was difficult to use it. Added with the fact that she had been poisoned by the origin source corpse poison, she had misgivings, and really did not dare to use spiritual power too violently. Needless to say, giant armor was the best at taking a beating, but he could only watch helplessly when it came to chasing people. At this moment, he was holding the severed arm of the Golden Corpse King, his heart full of confusion. Lan Zi very quickly discovered something strange. Although the Golden Corpse King was fleeing, he did not leave the 1,500 feet range from the original location of the main hall. It was as if there was something important here that he could not part with. If this situation continued to develop, it was really hard to say who would live and who would die. Although the Golden Corpse King was in a difficult situation at this moment, unwilling to confront Lu Yi head-on, he only fled in silence. However, he was obviously stalling for time, waiting for the corpse poison of the three people to erupt. When that time really came, not only would he be able to escape from danger, he would also have three more generals under his command. And what Lu Yi wanted to do was obviously to kill the Golden Corpse King before that happened. Lan Zi's figure suddenly swayed. The abnormal changes in her body made her panic, and she no longer dared to use spiritual power recklessly. She opened her mouth and shouted, "Lu Yi, I can't hold on anymore." As she said so, she quickly retreated into the distance. She had no choice but to retreat. If she continued to stay here, she would have to use spiritual power, and that would risk turning into a member of the Corpse Clan at any time. Lan Zi only stopped when she retreated to another nearby spirit peak. She looked up and saw that the pursuit was still intense and anxious. Two figures intertwined and moved, and saber lights kept surging, accompanied by the Golden Corpse King's roar. Giant Armor's stupid figure was also shuttling back and forth, but it could not do anything. It could not even stop the Golden Corpse King. Lan Zi was puzzled. Under the premise of being inflicted with the corpse poison of origin, Wuxia could last longer because of his strong foundation. Why was Giant Armor able to last longer than her? She did not have time to think too deeply. She hurriedly took out a sound transmission stone and poured spiritual power into it. She put it to her mouth and weakly shouted, "Wuxia, help!" The sound transmission stone was naturally given to her by Lu Yi. Everyone in the 9 states team had one, and even the Dao Palace had a lot of them. It was supposed to be convenient for them to communicate, but it had not been used. Lan Zi also did not expect that the first time she used it would be to ask for help. How can you be fine? How can you be fine? The Golden Corpse King, who was being chased by Lu Yi, finally could not stand it anymore. In the beast state, Lu Ye's speed was a little faster than his, so he could not get rid of Lu Ye's pursuit. His strong physique did not give him the sense of security he had in the past, but the embarrassment of a blunt knife cutting his flesh. The Golden Corpse King originally planned to wait for Lu Yi to turn into a member of the Corpse clan to resolve the crisis, but Lu Yi did not show any signs of transformation at all. Therefore the Golden Corpse King was very puzzled. He knew how fierce his corpse poison of origin was. The tall woman could not hold on and retreated, and the burly guy did not look like he could hold on for much longer. However, Lu Yi did not seem to be affected by the corpse poison of origin at all. How was this possible? According to the current situation, he was destined to not be able to wait until Lu Yi turned into a member of the Corpse clan. Although the damage caused by Lu Ye's saber was limited, it could not withstand a long time. At this moment, there was not the slightest bit of flesh on his back, and his whole person was in a half-skeletal state. Although the Corpse clan was an undead race, they could also die. The large amount of flesh and blood had indeed damaged his vitality, making it more and more inconvenient for him to move. As a result, Lu Ye's killing power was even more effective, and the Golden Corpse King had fallen into a vicious cycle. "You forced me to do this." The Golden Corpse King roared, his expression becoming ferocious. After cutting off one of his arms, he had been fleeing. At this moment he finally stopped and reached out with his remaining hand to grab the void below. At this moment, Lu Ye's heart was alarmed. Although he did not know what the Golden Corpse King was going to do, he could guess from his words that he was going to use some kind of incredible means. When his figure quickly swept towards the Golden Corpse King, Lu Yi took a light breath and placed the long saber in his hand horizontally next to his eyebrows, assuming a saber stance. At this moment, the already violent aura became even more overbearing and violent, wrapped in an indescribable sense of oppression and invasion. On the dark blade, a stream of light flashed, and in an instant, a starry sky seemed to appear behind Lu Yi. Asterisk crash. Asterisk somewhere in the palace ruins the earth churned, and an object suddenly soared into the sky, leaving a huge hole in the ground. The flying object was caught by the Golden Corpse King. The moment it entered his hand, the Golden Corpse King felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body became stiff, and even the surface of his withered body suddenly grew fine white fur, causing his entire body to seem as if it was covered in a layer of frost. It looked extremely strange. Lu Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He could clearly see that what was in the Golden Corpse King's hand at this moment was a broken palm. The broken palm was dry and withered. It should have been cut off by someone with a sharp weapon, and the cut was smooth and smooth. Although it was only a broken palm, it gave off an ancient and desolate feeling, as if it was a remnant of ancient times. This was the source of the Golden Corpse King's sudden strength. Lu Yi instantly understood. He had been looking for this source before, but unfortunately, he had not found anything until the Golden Corpse King took the initiative to offer this broken palm. 7017K. Chapter 839. Even though it was only a severed hand, when Lu Yi stared at it, he felt as if he could see through it and see the figure of its master. That was an existence that he could not match at all at this moment. That was an expert that even the Divine Sea Realm cultivators could not compare to. His mind suddenly suffered a huge impact. If it were not for Lu Ye's strong mind, he would have lost his fighting spirit in an instant. He did not dare to be careless anymore. He forced himself to calm down, channeled all the spiritual energy in his body into the long saber in his hand, and stabbed straight. All this time, the cultivators of the Wushuang continent had been wondering why a strange race like the Corpse clan was born in this world. No one knew the reason, but there was always a source. Before the change of the world, there was no such thing as the Corpse Clan on the Wushuang continent. Now, the cultivators of the Wushuang continent only knew one thing, and that was that the Corpse Fiends were the original Corpse Clan. He was originally an ordinary disciple of the Heavenly Palace. When he was a human, he did not have any dazzling achievements, and his cultivation was not very high. However, after the change of the world, he became a Corpse Clan member. Then, he spread the corpse disaster from the Heavenly Palace to the Wushuang continent, causing the current difficult situation of the human race. Previously, on the way to Mount Meru with Pang Huanin, Lu Yi, Pang Huanin, and Elder Xiao talked about many things, including what caused the Corpse Fiends to turn into Corpse Clansmen. How he did it was impossible to find out. Perhaps only he himself knew. However, at this very moment, when Lu Yi saw the severed hand, he suddenly came to a realization. This broken palm was the Golden Corpse King's last trump card. It might also be the source of his transformation into a Corpse Clan member. But even the Golden Corpse King did not dare to use it easily. This broken palm, this thing, was the source of his transformation into a Corpse Clan member, but using this thing would be unimaginable for him. The load. The stiffness of his body and the change of his fine hair were the most obvious signs. This time, if he had not been forced into a desperate situation by Lu Yi, he would not have acted so rashly. Die. The Golden Corpse King roared and channeled all his strength into the broken palm. However, rather than saying that it was channeled, it was better to say that it was devoured. Because in that short instant, his already shriveled body became even thinner and skinnier like firewood. Originally, it wasn't too big, but at this moment, it suddenly expanded in Wei Ye's field of vision, turning into a heavenly object, instantly covering all the light in front of her. It was as if there really was a huge hand in the dark. Following the Golden Corpse King's wave, the palm gently pressed down from the ninth heaven. Lu Yi felt as if he was carrying a huge mountain on his back. All the bones in his body were making cracking sounds. The instant before the Golden Corpse King made his move, the Panshan saber in his hand had already pierced out. The Golden Corpse King's expression froze and he was stunned. Saw the P.Yangda Zik behind Lu Yi. It was getting closer and closer, engulfing the sky and overturning him. What was this starlight? That was clearly a bit of saber light. The first style of Tyrant Blade, Starry Sky. This was the strongest saber skill that Lu Yi could perform at the moment. In addition, he was currently in beast form. Even Lu Yi himself did not know how much damage he could unleash. In an instant, the enemies of life and death were facing each other. The final attack that he unleashed seemed to be the result of mutual destruction. On the nearby spiritual peak, Lan Zi, who saw this scene, couldn't help but raise her heart. She was so nervous that her fingernails were embedded in her flesh, but she didn't realize it. She was not only amazed by the treachery of the Golden Corpse King's final trump card, but she was also amazed by Lu Ye's strength. A mere Yunhe realm cultivator had actually reached the realm of intent. This was a height that many true Lake Realm cultivators could not reach. She didn't know what kind of saber Lu Yi was using at this moment, but she could see that this was a real saber technique, not a simple technique. Only a real saber technique could unleash such a sharp saber intent. Just when she thought that Lu Yi was dead for sure, a burly figure suddenly flashed out and blocked in front of Lu Yi. Giant armor. When Lu Yi was chasing after the Golden Corpse King, he was also chasing after him. Unfortunately, it was useless. As a body cultivator, this was not something he was good at. Seeing that Lu Yi was in danger, he immediately flashed over. This was the field he was good at. He raised his head and roared, his spiritual energy and blood chi surging out. His burly body completely shielded Lu Yi behind him, turning into an indestructible barrier that could block out any storm. In this instant, the spiritual power and blood chi that he released quickly squirmed and changed, and then turned into an extremely strange shape, enveloping himself in Lu Yi. In the distance, Lan Zi was in a hurry. That was the Black Tortoise? In her field of vision, her two teammates in the distance seemed to be protected by a Xuanwu sacred beast condensed from qi, blood, and spiritual power. The Golden Corpse King's final attack came as expected. Under the magnificent palm, Giant Armor's expression suddenly became difficult. The power in its body surged even more violently. The Black Tortoise sacred beast, which had always been known for its defense, seemed to be unable to withstand such an attack. Its body suddenly cracked like a broken mirror, and cracks appeared on its body. It was not that the sacred beast was weak, but that Giant Armor's cultivation was too low, and it was difficult to display the full power of this power. In just a breath's time, the sacred beast's figure was almost shattered. If that was the case, not only him but also Lu Yi, who was behind him, would be in trouble. Giant armor opened its mouth and suddenly spat out a round thing, which seemed to be a monster core. The monster core immediately floated into the heart of the black tortoise sacred beast, and spiritual power surged out like a tide. The almost shattered sacred beast phantom miraculously stabilized with the injection of this power. The giant palm was still pressing down, and the sacred beast phantom wrapped around Lu Yi in giant armor and smashed into the ruins of the palace below. However, the sacred beast phantom wrapped around them did not collapse. A moment later, the giant palm disappeared. In the ruins, dust flew, and for a moment, it was impossible to see anything. Lan Zi imperceptibly created a breathing technique. Was he dead? Or was he still alive? Just as she was feeling bewildered, a figure staggered up from the ruins, covered in blood. It was none other than Lu Yi. Even with giant armor sacrificing itself to save him at the critical moment, he still suffered some pressure at the beginning. His injuries were not visible on the surface, but the situation inside was a mess. He was still alive. Lan Zi let out a long breath. However, she quickly reacted. Why was she worried about him? They were not on the same side, and she had been addicted to eating at his hands many times before. If he died, it should be a celebration. In the ruins, Lu Yi raised his eyes and looked forward. The Golden Corpse King had completely turned into a dried corpse at this moment. As a member of the corpse race, his body was shriveled, but at least he still had some flesh and blood, but now he looked like a bag of bones. His golden eyes were like candlelight that was about to be extinguished, and the expression in his eyes was complicated. I can't accept this. The Golden Corpse King opened his mouth, his voice so low that it was almost inaudible. Then he roared at Lu Yi, why? He had even used the trump card he was most unwilling to use, only hoping to die together with Lu Yi, but he did not expect that the other party would not die. This was unbelievable, and it made it difficult for him to accept. The weapon box at Lu Ye's waist buzzed, and a stream of light shot out, nailing the Golden Corpse King's forehead. There was not much damage, but with the explosion of the Imperial equipment, the Golden Corpse King's head instantly rolled off. Under the first move of the Tyrant Blade, his head had already been separated. Could be said that he was already dead the moment Lu Yi used the Starry Sky. However, the stubbornness in his heart forced him to hold on. Gurgle gurgle. His head rolled to the side and his eyes were wide open. He died with grievances and his headless body fell straight to the ground. I have someone, but you have nothing. In the ruins, Lu Yi spoke. Lan Zi, who heard this from afar, almost laughed out loud. The other party was already dead, so what was there to say? However, she did not know that this had always been Lu Ye's habit. When fighting with a strong enemy, he would not say anything. If he had anything to say, it would not be too late to kill the enemy first. The source of the chaos in the unparalleled continent had been eradicated, but the strange broken palm had been left behind. The Golden Corpse King had used the broken palm to activate an extremely powerful killing move, but at this moment the broken palm did not seem to have any changes. Lu Yi glanced at it vigilantly and did not go forward to investigate. He had seen the last change in the Golden Corpse King. This thing did not seem to be anything good. He had to think carefully about how to deal with it. He turned his head to look at his side. The giant armor was still in the abandoned city, and it was in the shape of a lake. There were fine cracks on the surface of his skin. Although the secret technique he used at the end was tyrannical, it was not without a price. Not to mention the huge consumption of the power of his demon core, his injuries were even worse than Lu Ye's. It was serious, but his body was strong and his life was in danger. Sensing Lu F's Yuan grin, he was instantly delighted. In the year of Shernan there were two powerful DU battles. Dong Yuan had chosen to fight in the Spirit Stream Battle Protector. This allowed him to go out of the U5 and follow Lu Yi everywhere to fight. However, ever since he passed through the 115-21 like machine realm and arrived at the Cloud River battlefield first, such an opportunity would be very rare. The giant armor missed those days very much. However, he also remembered Feng Yu's teachings in the spiritual land. Lu Ye's footsteps were too fast, so he had to work hard to cultivate. Only then would he have more opportunities to fight with Lu Yi. Lan Zi floated back in a flash and looked at the giant armor. Then she looked at Lu Yi and said, I've already sent a message to Ji Huazi. She'll be here soon. Lu Yi nodded and came to the giant armor's side. He found a piece of gravel and sat down, looking like an old hen protecting an injured chick. Lan Zi could not help but roll her eyes. There was a broken palm at the side and said, What should we do with this thing? Deal with it? Lu Yi was checking his battlefield imprint here. The amount of battle merits obtained from killing the Golden Corpse King was beyond imagination. Chapter 840. Previously, when the three of them killed the Iron Corps commander, Lu Yi received more than 10,000 battle merits, which was barely enough to exchange for a golden spirit lot. According to the harvest from killing the Iron Corps commander, the battle merits from killing the Golden Corps king should only be in the tens of thousands. However, that was not the case. The harvest from killing the Golden Corps king was much more than expected. This should be related to the fact that the Golden Corps king was the source of the zombie disaster on the Wuxia continent. Killing the Golden Corps king was equivalent to clearing away the biggest obstacle of the zombie disaster, and the following matters would be simple. Cultivators from the 9 prefectures rushed over like wolves and tigers. It would not be long before all the zombies on the Wuxia continent were wiped out. The long-cherished wish of the Ziwei Palace for 1,000 years could finally be fulfilled. Hearing Lan Zi's question, Lu Yi did not even raise his head. "Take it if you want." Lan Zi decisively refused. "No need." With her eyesight, she could naturally see that this broken palm was extraordinary. However, although it was good, she still needed the ability to hold it. The Golden Corps King's final miserable state was still vivid in her mind. How could she not know that this thing was not something she could control now? The battle here was very intense, and it had already attracted many cultivators from the 9 prefectures nearby to investigate. However, before the dust settled, no one dared to approach, mainly because the aftermath of the battle was too terrifying. Now that the battle had ended, many people showed up, but they only watched from afar and did not casually approach. Lu Yi continued to check his battlefield imprint. There were a few messages left in the imprint. Lu Yi continued to check his battlefield imprint. There were a few messages left in the imprint. After a brief check, he found that it was a message from his 4th senior brother. After some communication, Lu Yi discovered that Li Baxin and Feng Yu had also come to the Wuxia continent. It was not strange when he thought about it. There was a Tianji pillar in the spiritual land of the Return to Heaven Valley. Since there was a Tianji pillar, it was naturally connected to the Wuxia continent. This time, on the Cloud River battlefield, almost all the places where the Tianji pillar stood were connected to the Wuxia continent. It was convenient for the 9 prefectures cultivators to enter here and kill the zombies. However, Li Baxin now only knew that he was near the Ziwei Palace. As for his specific location, it was difficult to say. After all, he knew nothing about the Wuxia continent and suddenly came to this world. Moreover, it was a good time to kill zombies to obtain battle merits, so he did not have the time to inquire too much information. 4th senior brother was at the Ziwei Palace? Lu Yi couldn't help but feel a little strange. However, he quickly thought of something and felt relieved. While he was communicating with Li Baxin, a sword chime came from afar like thunder. It rapidly approached and arrived in front of him in the blink of an eye. The sword light receded, revealing 2 figures. One was Mu Qingyun, and the other was Wuxia. After receiving Lan Zi's call for help, Wuxia immediately rushed over. However, it was inconvenient for her to travel alone as a medical cultivator, so Mu Qingyun took the initiative to escort her. As a sword cultivator, his speed was undoubtedly very fast, so he arrived just in time to bring Wuxia here. "Why are you injured so badly again?" Looking at the disheveled Lu Yi, Wuxia hurriedly stepped forward to check his injuries. "Let's take a look at giant armor first." "I'm fine." Lu Yi pointed at giant armor lying next to him. Wuxia nodded and went to giant armor's side. After examining him, she urged her spiritual energy to heal him. "You guys killed King Jianghu?" Mu Qingyun looked at the remains of the battlefield and the dismembered corpse. Out of his body, he realized in hindsight. Although he did not personally participate, he could tell from the injuries of the 3 of them and the traces left behind on the battlefield. This was a bitter battle. For a moment he could not help but feel rather vexed. It was quite a pity that he could not participate in such a grand event. However, he had been poisoned by Origin Corpse poison earlier and urgently needed Wuxia to cure him, so there was nothing he could do about it. He could only say that he was unlucky. While they were busy here, many corpses fled inside and outside the secret realm of the Heavenly Sacred Hall. The cultivators of the 9 provinces and the Dao Palace occupied this place, and the cultivators pursued them relentlessly. The Heavenly Sacred Hall was the corpse race's greatest foundation on the unparalleled continent. The Golden Corpse King slumbered here all year round, and the 3 corpse commanders did not leave either. Left and right. Now that the Golden Corpse King had been slain and the 3 corpse commanders had been eliminated one after another, there were still some ordinary corpses left. The strong could no longer do anything. It was only a matter of time before they were all wiped out. On the battlefield where the Holy Ji Palace was located, The only remaining soaring dragon boat hovered in midair. Pang Huanin, who was in a weakened state, was in the middle of the battlefield. Pang Huan, who was weak, silently recovered as she stood on the side of the boat and gazed at the battlefield below. Her eyes were dazzled as she sighed in amazement. In the previous battle, she had basically fought to the point of exhaustion. The number of corpses she killed was more than the total number of corpses she had killed in the past. A lot. Although she still wanted to kill the enemy now, she no longer had the strength to spare. She could only recover first. Elder Zhao's situation was not much better than hers. The two of them gazed at the battle below. Although they were exhausted, their eyes were filled with joy. This was because they had finally seen the day when the corpse calamity was purged. The 1,000 years of perseverance and hard work of the Ziwei Dao Palace finally had meaning. Even now, there were still scattered cultivators of the 9 provinces emerging from the portals and joining the army that hunted the corpse race. Elder Zhao was actually rather curious. Palace Lord, these guests from the 9 provinces seem to be very enthusiastic about killing the corpse race. Have they encountered a corpse calamity before? It was not just enthusiasm. They were practically brimming with passion. In the beginning, when the cultivators of the 9 provinces first set foot in this world through the portals, there were actually many casualties. However, these setbacks could not stop the determination and enthusiasm of the cultivators of the 9 provinces at all. From Elder Zhao's point of view, these cultivators of the 9 provinces probably had a deep grudge against the corpse race. It seemed that they were determined to exterminate the corpse race. As a result, the main force killing the corpse race was now the foreign guests. On the contrary, the native cultivators of the Dao Palace and the stronghold had become a foil. Some of the corpse race members tried to escape, but the cultivators of the 9 provinces did not let them go. They chased after them and gradually disappeared. That's not the case. However, they seemed to be able to obtain something called battle merits by killing the corpse race, Pang Huanin explained. She had heard about this from Wuxia not long ago. Previously, when she observed the battle below, although there were many cultivators of the 9 provinces, they were basically acting in teams of varying numbers. It was difficult for them to form an army. Pang Huanin was a little worried that the morale of the cultivators of the 9 provinces would be unstable. Once they encountered too great a setback or an enemy that was too strong, it was very likely that they would scatter, which would lead to some extremely bad consequences. However, Wuxia reassured her. Even if the cultivators of the 9 provinces did not form an army, they would not scatter on a large scale in the face of the corpse race. This was because the battle merits were driving them to kill the enemy, which was more effective than any other method. However, Wuxia reassured her. Even if the cultivators of the 9 provinces did not form an army, they would not scatter on a large scale in the face of the corpse race. This was because the battle merits were driving them to kill the enemy, which was more effective than any other method. Battle merits? Elder Zhao was puzzled. The cultivators of the 9 provinces seemed to be able to use their battle merits to exchange for all kinds of cultivation resources. In short, the corpse race is a rare prey for them. Elder Zhao vaguely understood. I see. Looking at the entire Wushuang continent, the Turbid Heaven Temple was undoubtedly the most lively place at this moment. This was the foundation of the corpse race. The corpse race was huge in number, and the 9 provinces Qianji had opened the most portals here. The number of cultivators sent here was also the largest. Naturally, the battle between the two sides was in full swing. However, the other 3 secret realms of the human race were not lonely either. The 4 Qianji pillars set up by Lu Yi all swallowed the power of the earth veins of the secret realms to grow. The result of this was that the earth veins were exhausted, and the 3 secret realms of the human race were completely exposed. They could no longer drift in the void and not appear in front of people like before. When the portals opened, the cultivators of the Silver Snake Valley and Mount Meru were incomparably flustered. This was because such a thing had never happened in the past 1,000 years. The drifting void of the secret realms was the foundation of their stable survival all these years. Now that the secret realms were exposed and the portals were open, they no longer had the support they had in the past. The panic caused by this could be imagined. The movement of the portals was very obvious, and it quickly attracted the nearby corpse race. With no other choice, the cultivators of the Silver Snake Valley and Mount Meru could only brace themselves to face the enemy. Just as Lu Yi had thought, the time had come. No matter how unwilling these two sects were, they had no choice but to take the initiative to join the battle against the corpse race. As for the Ziwei Daoist Palace, the situation was even worse. At least the foundation of the Silver Snake Valley and Mount Meru was still there. In the face of continuous attacks from the corpse race from all directions, the cultivators only needed to guard the portals. They still had a relatively strong defensive ability. However, the same could not be said for the Ziwei Daoist Palace. Previously, Pang Huanin had almost taken away all the forces of the Ziwei Daoist Palace that could fight, leaving behind some old, weak, sick, and disabled people who did not have much combat ability, and even ordinary people who had never cultivated before. In the face of such a disaster, how could the Ziwei Daoist Palace withstand it? Once the corpse race rushed in, everyone guarding the Ziwei Daoist Palace would die. At this critical moment, portals with flowing light suddenly opened near the Ziwei Daoist Palace's secret realm. The number of portals was naturally not as many as the one in the Ziwei Daoist Palace, but the number of cultivators who walked out of those portals was not small either. The moment every cultivator set foot in this place, a piece of information exploded in the depths of their hearts, allowing them to gain enlightenment. Protect the Ziwei Daoist Palace. Li Baxian and Feng Yu were among this group of people, which was why he could mention the name of the Ziwei Daoist Palace to Lu Yi. This was the only information he knew about this world. The reason why he wanted to contact Lu Yi was naturally not because he already knew that Lu Yi was in the Wushuang continent, but because he thought that Lu Yi would most likely participate in such a grand event no matter where he was. However, he didn't expect that this grand event was actually led by Lu Yi and the other 9 people. Inside the Ziwei Daoist Palace's secret realm, Wuxia healed Zhu Jia and Lu Ye's injuries, then cured Lan Zi's origin corpse poison. Only then was she done. She did not stay for too long and quickly left again under the protection of Mu Qingyun. There was no other reason. As the only medical cultivator who could cure the origin corpse poison, her existence had been completely spread by the cultivators of the 9 states in a short period of time. There were always mistakes in the battle. Many cultivators who were poisoned by the origin corpse poison would run to the Ziwei Daoist Palace's dragon boat to find her to cure the poison. Of course, for Huaxi this was a good thing. Chapter 841. Detoxifying others was also a form of cultivation, and she could even gain a certain amount of battle merits. Huaxi was the only one among the 9 states cultivators who had such a good thing. It had only been a day since the 9 states cultivators arrived at the unparalleled continent, and the Corpse Clan's foundation in the Heavenly Palace was destroyed. 70% of the Corpse Clan was killed, and the remaining 30% fled. The 9 states cultivators chased after them. The flames of war instantly ignited the entire unparalleled continent. Under the raging flames, the unparalleled continent was not far from being reborn. The clamor in the Heavenly Palace was gone. Only Lu Yi in giant armor stayed behind in the ruins of the palace. Lan Zi had already left. She and Lu Yi were not on the same side and they worked together because they were forced to. Now that the dust had settled, there was no need for them to stay. Lu Yi in giant armor stayed behind to heal their injuries. The battle with the Golden Corpse King had left them with heavy injuries. Even with Huaxi's treatment and their strong physiques, it would take a day or 2 for them to fully recover. The second reason was to guard the broken palm. It was strange and might be the source of the zombie disaster. In order to prevent some ignorant 9 states cultivators from having designs on it, Lu Yi had been guarding it. However, he did not know how to deal with it. After thinking about it, bringing it back to the 9 states and having the sect master seal it was probably the best way. Only the Spirit Ocean Realm cultivators had the right to seal it. A familiar aura quickly approached from afar. Lu Yi, who was recuperating, looked up and saw a flower basket-like flying spirit artifact flying steadily toward him. As she approached, Huaxi jumped down from flower basket number 2 and put away her air transportation spirit artifact. "How are your injuries?" As she spoke, she came forward to check. After a busy day and night, she finally had some free time. However, she was not tired at all. Instead, she was in high spirits. After checking, Lu Yi checked giant armor and nodded slightly. "Young men, you're strong. There's nothing wrong with you. Rest for a few more days." It was an old woman's kiss. This woman was used to being a demon and Lu Yi was already used to it. She spoke again. "Palace Master Pang asked me to pass you a message. There's a problem at the Ziwei Palace and she went ahead first. She asked you to go to the palace after you're done here. She wants to thank you personally." "Got it?" Lu Yi nodded. It just so happened that he was also on his way to the Holy Ji Palace. 4th senior brother and maid Feng Yu were there, so he had to meet up with them. Huaxi then looked at Lu Yi with a mischievous smile. "Such a great favor, I'm afraid she'll have to repay it with her body. No wonder I saw your red Luan stars move today. You're going to have a happy occasion." I'll congratulate you first. As he spoke, he walked to the side. Lu Yi initially wanted to ignore her, but she suddenly realized that something was wrong. She quickly raised her hand. Wait. Before she could finish, she stared blankly at Wuxia, who was picking up the severed palm from the ground. Hearing Lu Ye's voice, she tilted her head with a puzzled expression. What's wrong? No. Lu Yi frowned. You don't have any bad feelings? What bad feeling? Wuxia was even more confused. Lu Yi looked at the broken palm in her hand. This thing should be the source of the zombie plague in this world. What are you trying to do with it? Refine it? Wuxia had a matter-of-fact look on her face. I already felt it when I came over yesterday. This thing is very nutritious. As she spoke, she licked her red lips with her little scarlet tongue. She looked like she was raring to go. This look was both evil and somewhat charming. Lu Yi felt a chill run down her spine for no reason, and her expression changed. Wuxia immediately smiled beautifully. Don't worry, it's not what you think. This thing contains a strange poison. Ordinary people might not be able to touch it, but it's very useful to me. Lu Yi was still worried. Be careful, this thing is very strange. A severed palm had caused this broken, unparalleled continent to be filled with the flames of war for 1,000 years, causing the human race to have no place to stand. It was hard to imagine what kind of cultivation base its owner had. I know, Wuxia replied and casually put it into her storage bag. Since the severed palm was taken away by Wuxia, there was naturally no need for Lu Yi to continue staying behind. The battle at the Heavenly Palace could be considered settled, and there was no trace of the corpse race anymore. The three of them immediately set off and left the Heavenly Palace. Along the way, they could see the figures of 9 provinces' cultivators flying back and forth from time to time, or they could see the scene of the corpse race being hunted down. For 1,000 years, this broken world had always been the corpse race's world. Even the humans from the 3 great secret realms had to be careful when they walked outside, not to mention the humans in the various strongholds. Many ordinary people had never left their strongholds from birth to death, and were trapped in a dark environment for their entire lives. Even if cultivators went out to search for resources, they had to bear a huge risk. They might encounter the corpse race and never return. After so many years, the number of humans on the unparalleled continent had sharply decreased. Compared to 1,000 years ago, it was probably less than 1/10,000th. Until today, under the pursuit of the cultivators of the 9 regions, the Corpse clan, who had been tyrannical in this realm for thousands of years, fled in panic like a stray dog. Those cultivators of the strongholds who received the news quickly joined in. In the entire realm, the Corpse clan was like a mouse crossing the street. Everyone wanted to beat them up. The situation was good. If the situation continued to develop, it would not be long before the corpse race in this world was completely eradicated. When that time came, this world would belong to the human race again. The Ziwei Daoist Palace wanted nothing more than to set things right and restore order. The days of peace and prosperity were not far away. Half a day later, when Lu Yi and Huazi Giant Armor arrived at the location of the secret realm of the Heavenly Palace, they saw the traces of the battle outside the secret realm's door. Dao Palace cultivators were cleaning up the remains of the corpse race on the battlefield. When they saw Lu Ye's figure, they all bowed. The Dao Palace cultivators were the first to know about the current situation on the unparalleled continent, and they also knew about the magical realm of the 9 provinces. The cultivators of the Dao Palace were naturally filled with respect and gratitude for the guests from the 9 states who had helped the peerless continent eradicate the zombie plague. This was especially true for Lu Yi and the others. As the eldest brother of the 9 states advance team, his role in this incident was unparalleled by anyone else. Senior brother Lu. A timid voice sounded nearby. Lu Yi turned his head and was a little surprised. You're here too? Zuishan quickly raised his hand to support him. Little friend, you're too polite. We have to thank you for this matter on the unparalleled continent. Without little friend, where would the unparalleled human clan go in the future? To the unparalleled human clan, little friend is nothing less than to the unparalleled human race, you have the grace of being reborn. He started to talk about the origins of Lu Yi and the others, as well as the matter of the 9 provinces cultivators. Senior, you're too kind. We're all humans and it's within our abilities. Zuishan nodded. Little friend, you should go. Seeing that your injuries are not light, it's more important for you to recover quickly. Then I'll take my leave first. Looking at Lu Ye's back, Yuan Xiang had a complicated expression. Zuishan seemed to have noticed something inside. In the future, without the corpse race, cultivate well. You're from 2 different worlds, don't think too much. Yuan Xiang was at the age when a young girl yearned for love. There were not many people in the stronghold who were of the same age as Yuan Xiang, and those boys were not worthy of her. Yuan Xiang herself had not come into contact with many cultivators of the same generation. Seeing someone as outstanding as Lu Yi for the first time, it was natural for her to be attracted. Not to mention Yuan Xiang, even Palace Master Pang had the same thought. Zui Shan remembered clearly that when he was on the soaring dragon boat, when he heard from the sound transmission stone that little friend Lu was injured and needed medical treatment, the expression of Palace Master Pang, who didn't change in the face of a huge zombie horde, suddenly changed. If it weren't for the untimely situation at the time, she would have personally gone to investigate the situation. But from his point of view, Lu Yi came from a mysterious world like the 9 provinces, and had such great strength at such a young age. If he was a divine dragon soaring above the 9 heavens, then Yuan Xiang, who came from the unparalleled continent and had mediocre aptitude, was like the mud in a pond. There was no possibility of a good thing happening, so even if he knew that his words were cruel, Zuishan had to say it to cut off Yuan Xiang's thoughts of favoritism. Yuan Xiang lowered her head, looking a bit disappointed. I didn't expect you to be so popular. On the flower basket, Hua Xi held Lu Ye's waist with a mocking expression. What are you doing now? Lu Yi was tormented by her. Hua Xi turned her head, not wanting to pay attention to him. Giant Armor stood to the side, looking down with melancholy. In the previous battle with the Golden Corpse King, he had used up too much of the reserve energy stored in his Yao core. It could almost be said that he had used up all of it. Fortunately, he had gained a lot of merit this time, so he should be able to easily replenish it later. The Dao Palace was calm and there were no traces of battle. Previously, when the Dao Palace's entrance appeared and attracted the nearby corpse race, cultivators from the 9 provinces had already crossed over. So the corpse race had been slaughtered before they could even enter the Dao Palace. Chapter 842. After all, the number of corpses attracted by the Ziwei Daoist Palace was not as many as that of the Heavenly Temple. Therefore, even if there were not many cultivators from the 9 provinces here, they could still deal with them easily. Lu Yi looked around but couldn't find Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan. He sent a message out to inquire and learned that the 2 had left the vicinity of the Dao Palace. They had formed a small group to hunt corpses. He told his 4th senior brother that he and Huazi had returned to the Ziwei Daoist Palace before ending the message. Hunting corpses was the current situation for the cultivators of the 9 provinces. There were not many opportunities to gain merit so easily, so the cultivators would naturally cherish it. If Lu Yi did not need to recuperate, he would not miss this opportunity. However, he had not recovered from his injuries yet. On the other hand, he had gained enough benefits, so there was no need to compete for those small benefits. Moreover, there were many cultivators from the 9 provinces this time. Even if he went hunting, he might not gain much. It was better to recuperate. As soon as he returned to the small courtyard where everyone lived, Pang Huanin had already heard the news. How are your injuries? She asked with concern. Since the beginning of this operation, the cultivators of the Daoist Palace led by her had split up with Lu Yi and the others, so they had not had a chance to meet. Originally, after the situation stabilized, she wanted to personally check on Lu Ye's injuries. However, she received news that something had happened in the Ziwei Daoist Palace, so she immediately led her people back. It's not a big deal. Huazi has already treated me. I'll be fine after a few days of rest, Lu Yi replied. Pang Huanin was relieved. That's good. His expression turned serious again as he took 2 steps back and bowed to Lu Yi. Thanks to senior martial brother, Wu Shuang was able to escape this calamity. In this generation of Ziwei Daoist Palace, Huanin has no human race. Thank you, senior martial brother and fellow Daoist. Palace Lord, you don't have to thank us. We also gained something. From the standpoint of Lu Yi and the others, this trip to the Wushuang continent was only because they were guided by Heaven's secret. This could be considered as a tempering. In this tempering, everyone had gained enough benefits. As for helping the Wushuang continent to eradicate the corpse disaster, it was just a tempering process. Pang Huanin shook her head. That's true, but if it weren't for all of you, the Wushuang tribe would never have been able to make a name for themselves. The Wushuang tribe will always remember your kindness, and the Ziwei Daoist Palace will never forget it. Lu Yi declined to comment. In that case, senior martial brother, please recuperate first. Once you've recovered, I'll host a banquet to entertain all of you. Pang Huanin came and went in a hurry. It was obvious that she had a lot of mundane matters to attend to. Lu Yi then walked towards his room. Wuxia followed beside him and said in a gentle voice, "Senior Marshal Brother, you must rest well. If you feel any discomfort, remember to call me." "Got it." "Also, Senior Marshal Brother, don't use your spiritual power casually for the next few days. Although your physique is strong, your lungs have suffered a lot of damage this time. Recklessly using your spiritual power may cause your injuries to flare up." "Yes." "Senior Brother, are you going to rest? Let me open the door for you." Lu Yi stopped and raised a hand to smack her on the head. Then she clenched her fist and fiercely punched her forehead. "What's wrong with you?" Previously she had been calling him Iya. Now she was calling him Senior Brother. She had never called him such nonsense in the past. "Ouch, ouch, ouch." Wuxia dodged and covered her head with both hands. She gritted her teeth and said, "Why can't I scream when others can? Say it again and I'll hear it." Lu Yi closed in on her step by step. Wuxia couldn't help but retreat, her face pale. Giant Armor sighed and strode towards his room, closing the door. The world was peaceful. After a while in the room, Lu Yi sat cross-legged. A burst of laughter came from the room next door. Wuxia and Yi were talking about something. Recently, because there were always outsiders following Lu Yi, Yi didn't show up much. She didn't easily reveal herself in front of outsiders, so until now, only a few people close to Lu Yi knew of her existence. In this way it was convenient for her to act in secret. After all, who would have thought that there was an existence like frustrated spirit in this world, and she was always by Lu Ye's side. Ignoring the commotion over there, Lu Yi immersed his mind and imprinted the origin of the dragon soaring realm. In the current situation he couldn't return to the 9 regions for a while, and it wasn't good to hunt the corpse clan. He wasn't in a hurry to cultivate for the time being. He could use this free time to imprint the origin. The origin of the dragon soaring realm was a huge undeveloped treasure. Lu Yi had gained a lot from it, but so far he hadn't been able to imprint an expert who cultivated the saber technique as he wished. He didn't know what went wrong. Under the illumination of the origin, the starry light exploded in Lu Ye's mind. Without making too many choices, he directly chose a brighter light nearby and immersed his mind into it, illuminating the life of the light's owner. The Ziwei Dao Palace had been lively recently. There were constantly cultivators from the 9 regions rushing here from all directions. There was no other reason. They all wanted to use the Ziwei Dao Palace to return to the 9 regions. When these cultivators came, they passed through the Qinji Pillars in the Qinji Business Alliance and the portals to the Wuxuan continent. However, those portals naturally couldn't be kept open all the time. The opening of the portals required the consumption of heaven and earth spiritual energy. If they were maintained for a long time, the consumption would be even greater. Therefore, not long after the cultivators from the 9 regions arrived at the Wuxuan continent, all the portals disappeared. However, the cultivators weren't too worried because where the Qinji Pillars existed, there would be a way to return home. Not to mention, the Qinji Pillars of the 9 regions had left guidance for almost every cultivator. At a specific time they had to pass through the Ziwei Dao Palace. At that time, the Qinji Pillars of the 9 regions would open a portal to return. This way the guests from the 9 regions could return to the Cloud River battlefield. As time passed, more and more cultivators rushed to the Ziwei Dao Palace. The Ziwei Dao Palace's attitude towards these guests from the 9 regions could be said to be extremely warm. After all, they had crossed the border and helped the Wuxuan continent solve a huge problem, so the Wuxuan continent didn't have to drag out an ignoble existence like before. Therefore, the Ziwei Dao Palace not only didn't restrict the 9 regions' cultivators from entering and exiting their own secret realm, but even inside the secret realm, except for some forbidden areas, the 9 regions' cultivators could freely wander around. But in this way trouble also came. Soon the Ziwei Dao Palace discovered something. These cultivators from the 9 regions didn't seem to be on the same side. They seemed to belong to 2 opposing camps. Previously, when the Corpse Clan was present, they could ignore each other and wholeheartedly deal with the Corpse Clan to obtain military merits. Now that almost all the Corpse Clan on the Wuxuan continent had been eradicated, the 9 regions' cultivators suddenly became idle, and the conflict erupted. In particular, there were too many cultivators from the 9 regions who came to the Wuxuan continent this time. Even if most of the cultivators were able to play their part, there were still many different kinds of people. In the harsh environment of the Wuxuan continent, there were still organizations like the Pure Scholars, let alone the 9 regions. The initial source of the conflict could no longer be traced. Perhaps it was just because 2 cultivators didn't see eye to eye, a small conflict led to a big conflict, and the situation instantly became hostile. The cultivators from both sides called for their friends, and a large-scale confrontation appeared in front of the Ziwei Dao Palace's gate. The situation had developed to this extent, and it was already a direct confrontation between the two camps. If things went wrong, there could be extremely tragic casualties. There had never been a secret realm where so many cultivators from the 9 regions gathered, and there had never been a time where so many Cloud River tier cultivators were involved. When Pang Huanin led people to investigate, she immediately understood that the situation in front of her was no longer something she could handle. Not to mention that she wasn't a cultivator from the 9 regions. Even if she wasn't qualified to handle such a matter. Quickly go and invite Senior Brother Lu. Pang Huanin immediately said to the person beside her. The cultivator couldn't help but be stunned. Which Senior Brother Lu? I've never heard of you having a senior brother. Lu Ye. Pang Huanin's face turned slightly red. The cultivator came to his senses and turned around to return to the secret realm. At this time on the Spirit Peak, Lu Ye opened his eyes with a melancholic expression. In the past few days he had made some gains in the imprinting origin, but it seemed that he didn't imprint the saber cultivators that Mu Hua had been longing for. Instead, he imprinted several cultivators from other factions. The noise from the outside world didn't affect this place, because there were always cultivators from the Dao Palace guarding the Spirit Peak. Pang Huanin had already turned this place into a forbidden area. Any cultivator from the 9 regions who approached this place would be told that this was the place where Lu Yi and Hua Xi cultivated. Lu Yi alone was enough of a deterrent, not to mention Hua Xi. If there was anyone who had benefited the most from this trip to the Peerless Continent, it would undoubtedly be Lu Yi, because the battle merits he obtained were incomparable to anyone else. However, if there was anyone who had won a huge reputation, it would be Hua Xi. As the only medical cultivator on the battlefield who could cure the origin corpse poison, countless cultivators of the 9 regions had been indebted to her. Almost all the cultivators of the 9 regions had heard of Hua Xi's name through word of mouth. Of these 2 people, one had killed countless people and was extremely vicious, while the other had healed the wounded and healed the dying. Who would dare to disturb this place where they cultivated? However, the fact that the 2 of them lived in the same Spirit Peak made people curious. Perhaps Lu Ye was also poisoned by the origin corpse poison, so he held the kind-hearted Hua Xi hostage to heal him? The scene of the gentle and jade-like woman falling into the hands of a vicious person like Lu Ye was simply unimaginable. It was like a fierce tiger sniffing a rose. Countless cultivators from the myriad demons ridge felt like their hearts were being stabbed by a knife. The cultivator sent by Pang Huanin hurried to this place. Hua Xi came out to receive him. After hearing about the situation outside, she couldn't help but frown. Lu Ye should still be healing. She hadn't seen Lu Yi in the past few days since she returned, so she didn't know how Lu Yi's injuries were recovering. She didn't dare to rashly disturb him. What should we do? The cultivator was very anxious. From the standpoint of the Ziwei Dao Palace, these cultivators of the 9 regions were the benefactors of the Peerless Continent. They didn't want any conflicts between the 2 sides because of past grievances. Chapter 843. While the 2 of them were talking, the door to the room beside them was suddenly pushed open, and Lu Ye's figure stepped out. The cultivator was overjoyed and quickly greeted him. I know, I'll go take a look. While speaking, Lu Yi had already rushed into the sky and rushed towards the palace's gate. Outside the gate, a large number of cultivators had gathered. The 2 camps were at daggers drawn, and the atmosphere was tense. The number of cultivators gathered here had already reached a certain level, and there was still a steady stream of cultivators rushing back to join the confrontation. A group of Ziwei Dao Palace cultivators, led by Pang Huanin, stood to the side. Although they tried their best to persuade them, it was to no avail. They could face the Corpse Clan without fear of death, but in the face of these cultivators who had just saved the Peerless Continent, Ziwei Dao Palace was at their wits' end. Once a battle of this scale broke out, it wouldn't be as simple as a few people dying. The entire Ziwei Dao Palace might be involved. Fortunately, although these guests from the 9 states were quarreling fiercely, they still maintained the most basic rationality and didn't really start a fight. However, if the situation wasn't resolved in time and continued to develop like this, a big fight would be inevitable. Pang Huanin kept looking in the direction of the gate until a familiar fiery red figure rushed out. Only then did she let out a long sigh. As soon as the fiery red flowing light hoe appeared, it swept through the cultivators of the 2 camps and revealed its figure, standing in the air. Such a conspicuous appearance naturally attracted the attention of a large number of cultivators. When they looked up, Many immediately shut up as they recognized Lu Ye's identity. Especially the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, some of them were eager to fight while their expressions were solemn. Compared to the Grand Heaven Alliance, Lu Ye's reputation in the myriad Devil Ridge was much higher. Take the Cloud River tier cultivators as an example. Out of 10 Cloud River tier cultivators, at least 5 dry had seen his image. Even if the other 5 hadn't seen him, they had more or less heard of his name. In any case, in the past year, the most famous person on the Cloud River battlefield was Lu Yi of the Jade Blood Sect. Throughout history, Lu Yi was the first Cloud River realm cultivator to kill 2,000 enemies by himself. No one had ever done it before. Especially since he had taken first place in the Cloud River battle with his 8th Order Cloud River realm cultivation. The noisy scene gradually calmed down, as if an invisible hand had brushed past, sweeping away the noisy noise. Many pairs of eyes focused on the young man. He stood in the air with his hand on his blade. Although he did not reveal any aura, he instantly became the center of attention. Pang Huanin's beautiful eyes glimmered as she glanced over. Amidst the silence, Lu Yi slowly said, "Everyone should have obtained a lot of benefits this time. I'm afraid no one is willing to die here for no reason, right? If you really want to fight, then go back to the 9 prefectures. At the very least, you won't end up dying in a foreign land." He turned and looked at a certain spot in the 10,000 Demon Ridge camp. "Ingwuji, what do you think?" Ingwuji, who was hiding in the camp of the Myriad Demons Ridge, had a bitter taste in his mouth. He realized that ever since he came to the Peerless Continent, he could not get rid of Lu Yi. He had hidden so well, but Lu Yi still saw through him at a glance. Was this guy trying to make things difficult for him? Ingwuji cursed in his heart, but he did not show any emotions on his face. He knew Lu Yi's strength better than anyone else. He did not know whether the other Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators would die or not, but Lu Yi would definitely not die. With Lu Yi's strength, the 10,000 Demon Ridge would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Ingwuji might even be unlucky. The reason why Lu Yi was the first to point him out was self-evident. Lu Yi clearly wanted Ingwuji to stand out and persuade him. After working with Lu Yi for so long, how could Ingwuji not see through Lu Yi's thoughts? Ingwuji immediately flashed out and rushed to Lu Yi's side. Looking at the huge crowd below, he nodded and said, "Brother Lu is right. The 2 camps of the 9 prefectures have accumulated grievances for a long time. Even if you really want to vent, there is no need to rush. Everyone, please calm down and wait for your return to the 9 prefectures. Since we have gained benefits this time, we should turn these benefits into our own strength. If anyone insists on fighting, I don't care if you are from the Grand Heaven Alliance or the 10,000 Demon Ridge. I will be the first to disagree." The 16th place of the Cloud River sect was still quite a deterrent, especially since Ingwuji was a ghost cultivator. It would be hard to guard against such a person. Mu Qingyun of the Northern Mystery Sword sect also disagrees. When the sound of a sword rang out, a sword light flashed, revealing Mu Qingyun's sword-like figure. A sharp sword intent spread out in all directions, cutting through the void. Flying swords like flowing lights surrounded her, ready to strike at any time. Another tall figure silently stood beside Lu Yi. She was extremely beautiful and wore a tight purple dress. She did not speak, but there was a faint smile on her lips, dazzling many people. "The 2nd place of the Cloud River sect, Lan Zi," someone exclaimed. As one of the few female cultivators in the top 10 of the Cloud River battle ranking list and ranked 2nd, Lan Zi's name was naturally known by everyone. Even if she was unknown before, after the Cloud River battle ranking list, her name spread throughout the Cloud River battlefield. "I also don't agree." Lu Qing walked out with a smile and stood to the right of Lu Yi. "I'm here." Feng Ruli rushed out from the crowd with his spear on his shoulder, looking down at everyone with a cynical gaze. Another tall cultivator silently walked out and stood beside Feng Ruli. The sackcloth on his body could not hide his burly figure. Through the gaps in his clothes, one could vaguely see the numerous wounds on his body that had not yet healed. The 1st place of the Cloud River sect, Lu Yi of the Jade Blood sect. The 2nd place of the Cloud River sect, Lan Zi of the Boundless Island. Mu Qingyun of the Northern Mystery Sword sect. Lu Qing of the 10,000 Arts Pavilion. Yang Yuan of the Shocking Sky Mountain. Feng Ruli of the Soaring Cloud sect. Ingwuji of the Sen Luo Hall. Low exclamations came from both sides of the crowd. Everyone was shocked to find that 6 of the top 10 in the Cloud River battle ranking list were gathered here. Although the remaining Ingwuji was not in the top 10, that was because he was a ghost cultivator. It did not mean that his strength was inferior to others. If it was a life-and-death battle, the threat that Ing Wuji could pose in the dark was even greater than the top 10. Therefore, although there were only 7 figures, when gathered together, the deterrence and suppression that they brought to the cultivators of the 9 states was unimaginable. More attentive people found a shocking thing. The 7 people stood in the air with Lu Yi in the middle and 3 on his left and right. However, whether it was Mu Qingyun of the Haotian Alliance or the other elites of the Wanmo Ridge, none of them stood side by side with Lu Yi. Instead they stood behind him. It looked like a scene of stars surrounding the moon. Mu Qingyun and Lu Yi both belonged to the Haotian Alliance and were from the War Province. It was understandable that they would give him face. However, the others were all from the Wanmo Ridge. Why would they give him face? One had to realize that these were all supreme prodigies. They represented the pinnacle of this generation's Cloud River tier. Even if they were facing other prodigies of the same generation, it would only stimulate their competitive spirit. They definitely wouldn't be allowed to fall behind. However, the scene at this moment was like this. It was terrifying to think about. When the 7 figures gathered and stood towering, the entire surroundings were deathly silent, and the confrontational atmosphere from before had been completely swept away. Suddenly, an extremely rich spiritual chi of heaven and earth gushed out crazily from an unknown place. The sudden change shocked everyone. However, after seeing the source, the cultivators of the 9 states immediately understood. It was because a huge door was slowly forming as the spiritual chi of heaven and earth gathered. This was the return passage of the 9 states that had opened. Calculating the time, it seemed to be a little early. However, this was exactly what the cultivators of the 9 states were happy to see. In the current situation they could not fight. Moreover, the cultivators of both sides understood that in such a large-scale confrontation, if they really fought, there would definitely be a lot of casualties. Therefore, many people had been paying attention to restraint. Now that Lu Yi and the others had stood out and opened the door of the 9 states, they could take advantage of this situation. "Let's go home." Somewhere in the crowd someone shouted. He was the first to rush toward the door and instantly disappeared. A large number of cultivators followed closely behind. The huge door swallowed many figures and sent them back to the 9 states. "I'll go first. Fate wills it. Forget it, it's better not to see you again." Lu Qing shook his head with a smile and rushed toward the door. He wanted to leave a polite sentence, but after thinking about it carefully, he decided that it would be best if he never saw Lu Yi again for the rest of his life. "Wait for me." Feng Ruli shouted and followed closely behind Lu Qing. Yang Yuan nodded slightly and was the third to leave. "You run so fast," Ing Wuji said while quietly observing Lu Ye's expression. After making sure that Lu Yi had no intention of keeping him, he rushed into the door like a wisp of smoke. Finally, he got rid of Lu Yi. Ing Wuji couldn't help but feel a sense of joy, as if he was a bird flying freely in the sky and a fish swimming freely in the sea. He couldn't help but think back to the first time he had walked out of his own sect. At that time his mood was exactly the same as it was now. Lan Zi poked Lu Ye's arm and pouted in one direction. "There seems to be someone over there who wants to say something to you." After saying that, she slipped away with a ridiculing expression as if it had nothing to do with her. "Junior Marshal Brother Lu, I'll also go first. We'll meet again if fate wills it," Mu Qingyun said. "Take care, Senior Marshal Brother." Only Lu Yi was left in the air. He looked to the side and saw Pang Huanin looking at him. At this moment, the palace master's expression was clearly a little complicated. She knew in her heart that as a guest of the 9 states, Lu Yi could not stay forever. She also knew that it would not be long before the 9 states would open the door and take back all the cultivators of the 9 states, including Lu Yi. What she did not expect was that things would come so quickly. Their eyes met. Pang Huanin sighed in her heart, but her face remained calm. She dashed to Lu Ye's side and asked, "Senior Marshal Brother, can you accompany me for a walk?" Lu Yi nodded after a moment of hesitation. "Thank you." Pang Huanin smiled. Chapter 844. Walking in the Ziwei Taoist Palace, Pang Huanin spoke softly, mainly to express her gratitude. The corpse calamity that had plagued the peerless continent for thousands of years had been resolved by the persistence and hard work of the Doctrine Palace's ancestors after Lu Ye's arrival. As the current Doctrine Palace master, Pang Huanin was truly grateful. Even though she already knew that Lu Yi and the others had only come here. This neck grinding was also a kind of kindness from Workman 5. It was a fact that the Wushuang continent had been saved. This kind of kindness. No matter how much he thanked her, it would not be enough. "I have yet to apologize to you, Palace Lord." The Holy Ji Palace's earth veins have dried up and I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to recover. After placing the Tianji pillars in the 4 great secret realms, the earth veins in the secret realms had all been devoured and dried up. Although the 4 great secret realms still existed, they had lost their ability to travel through the void and could only be located in fixed places. Lu Yi didn't tell Pang Huanin about this matter in advance. Even if he knew about it, Pang Huanin wouldn't stop him. This matter is not a problem. In the future, when the Wushuang continent no longer has the corpse plague, our Wushuang human clan will no longer need to hide. It's just that right now, the Wushuang human clan has many things to do and has a long way to go. Lu Yi didn't say anything. He couldn't understand Pang Huanin's decision to put the future of the entire human race in her hands. If it were him, he wouldn't do such a thing. He, Dido, would only consider the future of the people close to him. As for those who they didn't know or weren't familiar with, they didn't have the mood or ability to do so. However, this was what Pang Huanin had been taught since she was young, so she would not go to the locust sickness's house. Senior Marshal Brother. Pang Huanin stopped and turned to look at him. Will we meet again in the future? Lu Yi thought for a while and said, currently the Wushuang continent has, logically speaking, there was a high chance that this place would become a secret realm of the 9 prefectures after the Pillar of Heavenly Secrets was placed there. Many 9 regions cultivators have come here to gain experience. If Palace Master wants to lead the unrivaled couple clan out of the predicament, perhaps you can borrow the strength of those 9 regions cultivators. I'm asking Senior Marshal Brother. Pang Huanin looked at Lu Yi with a firm gaze. Lu Yi did not understand why she had suddenly addressed him as Senior Brother. However, it would not be appropriate for him to correct her on such a small matter. Thus he explained, a realm has a limit to how much it can contain. Right now, the limit of the Peerless Continent is the Cloud River tier. Thus, the cultivators of the Peerless Continent can only cultivate up to the peak stage of the Cloud River tier. The reinforcements sent by the 9 prefectures are also all in the Cloud River tier. This time I've obtained quite a lot of benefits. After returning to the 9 continents, it's time for me to advance to the true lake stage. Pang Huanin's eyes dimmed as she asked, Senior Marshal Brother, are you going to leave the Wushuang continent in the future? Probably. Lu Yi nodded. After a long silence, Pang Huanin suddenly smiled and said, then I wish Senior Marshal Brother a bright future. Senior Brother, let's stop here. It's time for you to return. Take care. Lu Yedao said. Senior Brother, please take care of yourself too. Watching Lu Ye's departing figure, Pang Huanin clasped her hands behind her back and remained silent for a long time. A figure appeared nearby. It was Elder Xiao. He sighed slightly and said, Palace Lord, there are many passers-by in one's life. Some things can't be forced. After all, we're from 2 different worlds. Pang Huanin smiled slyly. Who said we're from 2 different worlds? Elder Xiao looked at Pang Huanin in shock. He thought that his palace lord was in low spirits, so he wanted to comfort her. However, it seemed that he was overthinking. It was just that, what do you mean, palace lord? You'll know in a few days. However, it's a good thing for the peerless human clan. When they returned to the gate of the Ziwei Daoist Palace, most of the cultivators of the 9 prefectures had left. Lu Yi immediately saw Huaxiai Giant Armor, Li Baxin, Fengyu and the others waiting there. Li Baxin and Fengyu had already returned. One of the Peerless Continent's weapons was A2, and there might still be some factory clan members left. At this moment, the Peerless human clan could easily take care of them. However, all of them were waiting outside. Fengyu didn't disturb them and waited outside. The 2 of them saw how Lu Yi stepped forward to stop the conflict between the 2 factions. This made Li Baxin feel more and more emotional. His junior brother had grown up. When he first met Lu Yi on the younger brother, Shi 42, and the other 5 senior sisters joined forces to protect him. Now, on the path of cultivation, Lu Yi had already walked ahead of him. Li Baxin was sincerely happy. Yo, you can still come back? Didn't they keep you as a son-in-law? Hua Xiai glanced over and said sarcastically. Obviously, she had seen the scene of Lu Yi and Pang Huanin leaving. 4th senior brother, senior sister Feng. Lu Yi pretended not to hear Hua Xi's words and stepped forward to salute them. Junior brother, you were so impressive before. Feng Yu giggled. Senior sister, you must be joking. Li Baxin said, even your Shixiang, I am rational. I only hate that I didn't get a good ranking in the Cloud River struggle for hegemony. I want it. Otherwise, I could stand by your side and cheer for you. While they were chatting, Li Baxin patted Yu Ye's shoulder and said, okay, it's time to go. Shiro didn't leave anything behind, right? Lu Yi shook his head. Wuxia also looked over and asked, "Are you sure?" Lu Yi thought carefully and said, "Yes, I did provide a batch of spiritual tea to the Taoist palace. It's not good to take it back now, so I'll leave it to them." Okay. Those spiritual tools were his spoils of war. For him, they were sold to the Tianji treasury for merit points. They weren't worth much, so he didn't mind giving them away. Previously, the Taoist palace had paid a great price to restrain the corpse clan. Feng Yu pursed her lips and chuckled. Junior brother might have left more than one batch of spiritual tools. She obviously knew something. Lu Yi was puzzled. What else is there? How could he not know what he had left behind? While he was puzzled, the group of people stepped into the 9 prefectures gate. It didn't take long for the 9 prefectures cultivators to evacuate. From the opening of the gate to the closing, it only took 4 to 6 hours. After all the cultivators who came to the Wuxia continent had been guided by Tianji to rush to the Ziwei Taoist palace at a specific time. No one dared to be careless about returning to the 9 prefectures. Naturally, they would rather be early than late. When the gate closed, there were only some local cultivators left in front of the noisy Taoist palace. It was interesting. Some of the cultivators from the strongholds wanted to mix in with the 9 prefectures cultivators and enter the 9 prefectures through the gate. It was a good idea, but it was difficult to do. The cultivators of the 9 regions could easily enter the portal, but the native peerless cultivators could not enter at all. That portal seemed to have the ability to identify the identity of the cultivators. All the native cultivators who wanted to fish in troubled waters were blocked, which made them sigh uncontrollably. It was natural for the local cultivators to yearn for the 9 prefectures. Although the corpse disaster on the Wuxia continent was solved, it was a broken domain. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was not rich, and cultivation resources were scarce. Even the living materials were difficult to guarantee. In contrast, the cultivators from the 9 prefectures were all dressed in bright clothes and had excellent spiritual weapons. How could the local cultivators not yearn for the 9 prefectures cultivators? It was a pity that it couldn't happen. At this time in the Ziwei Taoist Palace, a palace master's order was suddenly issued. The Ziwei Taoist Palace, which had just finished the war, was once again sharpening their swords. This time they were not going to deal with the corpse clan. Instead, they were going to send troops to the other 2 secret realms of the human race. In the process of fighting against the corpse disaster for 1,000 years, even the cultivators from the strongholds had put in a lot of effort. However, the Silver Snake Valley and Mount Meru were hiding in the Liushuang secret realm. They lived an ignoble existence and occasionally went out to receive the human race. Entering the secret realm was also to supplement the number of slaves in the secret realm. They only selected some young people and children. Previously, due to the corpse disaster, the Ziwei Taoist Palace could only join forces with all the forces they could. The other 2 secret realms had expressed their intention to join forces, but they had never received a decent response. Now that the corpse disaster had been resolved, the Ziwei Taoist Palace no longer had any worries. It was not that they wanted to settle the score after the autumn, but to achieve a request that could determine the future fate of the entire Wuxia continent, they had to subdue the other 2 secret realms first. Pang Huanin needed to make sure that she was the only voice on the Wuxia continent. This was not to vent her anger, nor was it about her personal interests. Instead, it was for the good of the entire human race on the Wuxia continent. When the human race from many strongholds heard the news, they all volunteered to join them. Among them, the human race had seen what the 3 secret realms of the human race had done over the years. Therefore, when the news that the Ziwei Taoist Palace was going to fight to the death with the corpse clan spread, so many human race from all directions rushed to support them. The Ziwei Taoist Palace had an excellent reputation. As for the other 2 secret realms, it was not worth mentioning. Therefore, when they heard that the Taoist Palace was going to send troops to the other 2 secret realms, the human race from the strongholds who had not left were naturally willing to join them. In their opinion, the Ziwei Taoist Palace would be the master of the Wuxia continent in the future, and they would definitely be able to open up a bright future for the human race. They were also willing to contribute to this. If it was before, it would be difficult for the Ziwei Taoist Palace to find the other 2 secret realms. Even if Elder Xiao knew how to deduce and open the doors, it would be unrealistic to send troops on such a large scale. However, now that the earth veins of the 3 secret realms of the human race had dried up, they could no longer travel freely in the void. They had all appeared in the world, so it was naturally easy to find them. The entire subduing process was easy and there was not a fierce battle at all. This was because when the 3 secret realms appeared, the Taoist Palace had many cultivators from the 9 states to help protect them and kill the corpse clan. Therefore the Taoist palace was safe. However, the Silver Snake Valley and Mount Meru were not so lucky. The cultivators from the 9 states did not appear on their side at all. A large number of corpse clans swarmed over from all directions, and the panicked cultivators from the 2 secret realms hastily fought back. However, after so many years of living without purpose, they had long lost the courage and determination to fight to the death with the corpse clan. Therefore, even though there were many cultivators in the 2 secret realms, there were still many casualties in the battle. Chapter 845. Although they managed to kill the zombies in the end, the Silver Snake Valley and Mount Meru suffered heavy casualties, which greatly damaged their foundations. Before they could deal with the aftermath, Pang Huanin led a large group of cultivators to their doorstep. Without much trouble, the 2 mystic realms submitted to her. Only now did they know that a large number of visitors from the 9 states had arrived at the Wushuang continent. With the help of these visitors, the Wushuang corpse disaster had been eradicated. The cultivators of the 2 mystic realms were all dumbfounded. Pang Huanin had no intention of incorporating these 2 mystic realms. The Ziwei Taoist palace was not on the same side as these 2 mystic realms, so forcefully incorporating them would not benefit the Taoist palace. She only wanted to subdue them. She needed these 2 mystic realms to listen to her orders. A few days later, in the Ziwei Taoist palace, in the courtyard of the Spirit Peak where Lu Yi and the others once lived, Pang Huanin stood with her hands behind her back in front of the 30-meter-tall Tianji pillar. She looked up and seemed to be listening to something attentively. However, the strange thing was that there was no one else here except her. After a while, she straightened her head and said, "I understand. I agree. Let's begin now." As soon as she finished speaking, the Tianji pillar in front of her suddenly emitted a gentle light. The light was like a warm sun, radiating in all directions. It spread across the entire Ziwei Taoist palace and continued to spread into the depths of the world. Not only did the Tianji pillar in the Ziwei Taoist palace have such an abnormal reaction, but the Tianji pillars in the other 3 mystic realms also reacted the same way. In less than a dozen breaths, the entire broken Wushuang continent was enveloped by a layer of gentle light. No one knew what was happening. Just as everyone was wondering what was happening, the world suddenly buzzed. The people were shocked to find that the turbid sun in the sky was rapidly moving away. At this moment, a heroic voice spread to every corner of the Wushuang continent with the help of the gentle light. "I'm Pang Huanin, the master of the Ziwei Taoist palace." The cultivators of the 9 states did not return to a fixed location through the huge portal. Instead, they were randomly scattered across the Tianji Business Alliance in the Cloudy River battlefield. Therefore, there wouldn't be a sudden rush of people. Lu Yi and the others were considered the last batch to return to the Cloudy River battlefield. Stepping back into this familiar world, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. The peerless continent was dilapidated and desolate. Such an environment easily gave people a feeling of oppression. Apart from the 4 great secret regions, the heaven and earth spiritual qi in other places was extremely thin. To them, the environment in the Cloudy River battlefield was undoubtedly much more pleasant. This trip to the Wushuang continent had left a deep impression on Lu Yi. As part of the human race, some people were born to enjoy an extremely favorable cultivation environment, but some people were still worried about survival. The fact that the 9 regions could have such a cultivation pattern today was naturally closely related to the operation of the heavens. In the Spirit Stream realm, there was a place like the Spirit Stream battlefield for cultivators to cultivate and temper themselves in peace. Although there were some powerful cultivators that they couldn't defeat, they were still in the same cultivation stage, so the pressure and the fact that their goal wasn't too far away actually made them work even harder. When one was at the Cloud River tier, there was also a Cloud River battlefield. It could be said that the existence of these 2 battlefields alone could allow 9 regions to continuously produce a large number of grassroots cultivators. Cultivators didn't even need to worry about refining weapons and pills. As long as they had enough merits, the Tianji treasure house had everything they wanted. The spirit weapons used by any cultivator here were rare goods in the peerless continent, and the pills they took were also things that the cultivators there dreamed of. Lu Yi still remembered that he and Ying Wuji met Yu Zhen, who was injured by the corpse poison. At that time he took out an ordinary antidote pill, but even when Yu Zhen was facing the threat of death, he couldn't bear to swallow the antidote pill because for them that kind of pill was extremely rare. Fortunately, the hard work of this trip was worth it. The few people in the advanced group went through hardships and difficulties to set up the 4 Tianji pillars. A large number of reinforcements from 9 regions arrived to help the peerless continent solve the corpse disaster. What kind of fate would the peerless continent have in the future, and whether it would become a secret region of the 9 regions, Lu Yi didn't know, but this was enough. Without the corpse disaster, the peerless continent should get better and better. Little junior brother, are we going to rest here for a night or leave immediately? Li Baxin asked for Lu Ye's opinion. I just checked the map. This place is considered the periphery of Taimeng Mountains and is not far from Return to Heaven Valley. If we set off now, 1 day should be enough. Senior brother can make the decision. Lu Yi has no objections. Li Baxin said, then let's leave now. We've all gained a lot from this trip, and it's important to turn it into our own strength. Little junior brother, you should also start to break through to the true lake stage. Lu Yi indeed had this plan. When he parted with Pang Huanin, he also mentioned this. Although after breaking through to the true lake stage, he would no longer be able to stay in the comfortable environment of the cloudy river battlefield and might have to face more dangers, he couldn't always delay breaking through. Moreover, for cultivators, an appropriate amount of danger and urgency was actually beneficial. I won't be going with you. Huaxi said with a smile, I want to go somewhere else. Long before the trip to the Wushuang continent, she had already prepared to enter the 5 poison pool to meditate. Lu Yi had also sent her to that place. In the end, the two of them received the guidance of Heaven's secret halfway and left the 5 poison pool one after another. This time, Lu Ye's biggest gain was military merit, but Huaxi's biggest gain was the broken palm left behind by the Golden Corpse King. With the broken palm and the special cultivation environment of the 5 poison pool, Huaxi's cultivation would definitely improve rapidly in the future. Everyone had their own cultivation direction, so if Huaxi wanted to go to the 5 poison pool, it was naturally not easy to stop her. I'll send you. Lu Yi, tell me. No need, I can go there myself. The reason why she asked Lu Yi to escort her last time was because they might not be able to see each other for a long time, so she acted like a little girl. Actually, with her ability, why would she need an escort? Previously, when she was trapped in the Meru Mountain with Lan Zi, she didn't panic. On the cloudy river battlefield, if anyone dared to have any ideas about her, they would definitely die miserably. They might not even know how they died. She was also a decisive person. Once she made a decision, she would no longer stay and was the first to leave. After seeing her figure disappear, Lu Yi and the others set off on their return journey. A day later, Return Heaven Valley's spiritual land was in sight. The large formation that enveloped this place was intact, and there were constantly large demon wolves entering and exiting. Return Heaven Valley's spiritual land could be considered somewhat famous in the entire cloudy river battlefield. This was Lu Ye's spiritual land, and it had withstood countless attacks from tens of thousands of devil-aged cultivators without falling. Even the 10-point map had new markings for this spiritual land. It was unknown what the Tianji Business Alliance's intentions were. Other spiritual lands had simple markings on their 10-point maps, but Return Heaven Valley's spiritual land's markings were blood red. Just looking at it gave people a sense of horror, as if there was a formless killing intent coming from it. Markings with this color were usually only seen in various forbidden lands and the territories of overlord-level demon generals. Many cultivators who had just entered the cloudy river battlefield had bought the 10-point map from the Business Alliance. When they saw the markings on this spiritual land, they were confused and mistook it for some forbidden land. The 4 of them landed and walked into the spiritual land. Lu Yi went straight to the spiritual spring and took out a box from his storage space. Li Baxin followed curiously, and when he saw the item in the box, he was instantly shocked. Spring Spirit. He suddenly realized, could this be the spring spirit of the Holy Eve's spiritual land? The destruction of the Holy Eve's spiritual land had caused quite a commotion. It was not that there were no spiritual lands being destroyed in the cloudy river battlefield, but it was very rare for such a large spiritual land to be destroyed. The Holy Fire sect and the Huanyu sect had been operating this spiritual land for hundreds of years, which was why it had such a large scale. To the 2 sects, the spiritual land on the cloudy river battlefield was already considered one of the foundations of their sections. The 2 sects could use this spiritual land to shorten the growth time of cloudy river tier cultivators, and they had benefited greatly for hundreds of years. However, after being targeted by Lu Yi, they were destroyed just like that. Even the spring spirit was stolen. Although it was not enough to hurt them, they still suffered heavy losses. There were still cultivators from the Holy Eve's spiritual land who were lucky enough to survive that day. The news of Lu Yi single-handedly destroying the spiritual land had naturally spread out. Hence, when Li Baxin saw this white and plump spring spirit, he knew its origin. That's right, This is the spring spirit of the Holy Eve's spiritual land. Lu Yi replied, and under Li Baxian's watch, he placed the spring spirit in his hand into the spring. Senior brother, how much do you think the spiritual land will expand? The spiritual land in Heaven Return Valley was already a grade A spiritual land. If he placed the spring spirit in, its quality would not increase because grade A spiritual land was the limit. However, it could expand the range of the spiritual land. The spiritual land in Heaven Return Valley was originally a small spiritual land, and could only accommodate a few people to cultivate together. If the number exceeded that, the efficiency of cultivation would be reduced. If the spiritual land was expanded, it would naturally be able to accommodate more cultivators. The Holy Eve spiritual land can be considered a super large spiritual land, and can accommodate 200 people to cultivate and survive in it. However, even so, if we place the spring spirit here, our spiritual land can also expand into a large spiritual land, and I estimate that it won't be a problem to accommodate 100 people. That's enough. Lu Yi nodded. The reason why he wanted to create a spiritual land here was mainly to leave a place for his junior brothers and sisters of the Jade Blood sect to stay and cultivate. The Jade Blood sect had taken in many disciples in the past few years. Lu Yi even heard that the sect master had not changed, and continued to pluck peaches from other large sects, finding many good seedlings with excellent aptitudes. This caused the sects in the entire War province to be like the Bitter Tang dynasty, and had already listed him as the most unpopular Divine Ocean tier cultivator. However, the growth of a cultivator ultimately needed time. So far, there were no other Cloudy River tier cultivators in the Jade Blood sect aside from him, Giant Armor, and Wuxia. He clicked to download the best book chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud. Chapter 846. The first batch of disciples should be about to break through to the Cloud River realm. When they arrived at the Cloud River battlefield, they could directly enter the Spirit Land in returning Heaven Valley to cultivate. Once they had a certain level of self-protection, they could then go out to gain experience and obtain cultivation resources. Lu Yi himself had walked step by step, but he had the help of Heaven's secret, so his luck was flourishing. The other disciples of Jade Blood sect did not have his luck. Today's efforts would definitely allow the future junior brothers and sisters to take fewer detours and allow them to grow faster. As for the scale of 100 people, it should be enough. Most cultivators would not stay in one place for a long time to build their chariot behind closed doors. They would always need to go out to temper themselves. Therefore, even if many disciples broke through to the Cloud River realm and came to the Cloud River battlefield in the future, there would not be too many people staying in the Spirit Land at the same time. The expansion of the Spirit Land would take some time, and results would only be seen in 3 to 5 days. Li Baxian had already gone to the location of the Heaven's secret inscription. Obviously, he was preparing to exchange his war points for spirit lots to cultivate. Lu Yi followed behind him, immersing himself in checking his battlefield imprint as he moved forward. Name, Lu Yi. Identity, Jade Blood sect disciple. Cultivation, Cloud River Realm 8th Order. Location, Cloud River battlefield. Merit points, 116,245 points. Battle merit, 186,472 points. Compared to the last time he checked, there was not much change in his war points. Recently he had not used them anywhere, but his war points were a little terrifying. Last time, after he exchanged for the golden spirit lots from the war points pavilion, he remembered that he only had 3,232 war points left. After that, he participated in the Cloud River battle and obtained some war points, but they were at most a few thousand points. But now, he had more than 180,000 war points. Simply killing the corpse race would naturally not give him such a huge amount of war points. After all, even the Golden Corpse King was only equivalent to a Cloud River Realm 9th Order, and it only represented 60 war points. But killing the Golden Corpse King was of great significance to solving the corpse disaster of the Peerless Continent. So when the 9 Continents Heaven's secret inscription was planning, it gave him a huge reward. An Iron Corpse commander had given Lu Yi over 10,000 points, but the Golden Corpse King had given him over 100,000 points. The rest was the merit he had accumulated from killing a large number of corpses. There were a total of 9 people in the advance party from the 9 prefectures to the Peerless Continent. Lu Yi did not know how many battle merits the others had obtained. The only thing he was sure of was that no one had obtained more battle merits than him, because in the final battle, he was the main force that killed the Golden Corpse King. More than 180,000 battle merits. According to the exchange rate in the War Merit Pavilion, he could obtain more than 10 golden spiritual lots. He already had the 20 golden spiritual lots from the Cloud River Hegemony contest that he had yet to use. With such abundant resources, it was enough for him to advance to the True Lake stage. The benefits obtained from the trip to the Wushuang continent were not only the battle merits shown on the battlefield imprint. There was something else. In comparison, perhaps this was the greatest benefit. Because the moment Lu Yi returned to the 9 regions through the portal of the Ziwei Daoist Palace, a message exploded in his mind. The content of the message made him excited and expectant. Little junior brother, I'm going to cultivate first. Li Baxian had already exchanged the spirit lot and turned to Lu Yi. Lu Yi retracted his mind. Go ahead, senior brother. After Li Baxian left, he stepped forward and pressed his hand on the Tianji pillar in front of him. He did not connect to the War Merit Pavilion immediately, but to the Tianji treasury. Every once in a while he would pick some special flames and pill fires from the Tianji treasury. It had already become his habit. However, ever since he spent a lot of merit points to buy all the earth core fire in the Tianji treasury, it was very difficult. It was difficult to buy a large amount of earth core fire. This time his luck was only SOSO. Including the various special flames and pill fires, he bought more than 10 sets of earth core fire and spent more than 10,000 contribution points. These were all resources for the talent tree. Because of the lack of resources, the talent tree still had an embryonic form of a spirit pattern that had not been completely ignited. Lu Yi was still looking forward to the embryonic form of the spirit pattern. Because it required many leaves to carry the spirit pattern, it was extremely complex and would definitely be of great use. For example, the flying wings and the fire phoenix that he mastered were all of this type of spirit pattern. Buying some beast cores for Hoopa would cost him more than 10,000 contribution points. Next would be the main event and also the one that he looked forward to the most. Just as he was about to leave the Tianji treasury and connect to the War Merit Pavilion, Lu Yi seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly searched the Tianji treasury. Soon he found his target. The flesh of the Crimson Child Silverback Wolf, 5,000 contribution points. The flesh of the Heaven-Devouring Bull Python, 8,000 contribution points. He bought 4 pieces of demonic beast flesh, which cost him 20,000 contribution points. It was incomparably expensive. Moreover, Lu Yi had never even heard of the names of these demonic beasts. Looking at the flesh, all of them contained pure energy. These were the flesh of true lake stage demonic beasts. Demonic beasts of this level were already at the demonic commander level and were not existences that Lu Yi could come into contact with. Although it was a little painful, if his idea worked, perhaps there would be a decent return in the future. War Merit Pavilion. Lu Yi muttered in his mind. The surrounding scenery rapidly changed and then froze. A thick and simple door appeared in front of him, emitting an ancient and desolate aura. Above the door, there was a seemingly rusty plaque with the words, War Merit Pavilion written on it. Above the door, there were 2 dragon-like existences with their eyes closed in deep sleep. Perhaps Lu Ye's arrival alarmed them. The 2 dragons opened their eyes simultaneously. A ferocious and bloody aura rushed towards him, giving him a great sense of fear. Lu Yi had experienced this before, so naturally his expression did not change. He even had the mood to carefully observe the 2 dragons that seemed to be embedded in the door. Previously he came and left in a hurry, so he did not carefully observe them. This time Lu Yi consciously paid attention. He discovered that although the 2 dragons did not seem to be any different, there were still some differences. The dragon on the left had a dot of gold in the middle of its forehead, while the dragon on the right had a dot of silver. Gold and silver dragon? Lu Yi thought in his heart. Greetings to the 2 seniors. Lu Yi bowed respectfully. The last time he came, he had already made up his mind that he definitely could not pass by Yi Defi's 2 dragons. These fellows seemed to be sealed here and could not escape, but their strength was unparalleled. Lu Yi suspected that they were at the demonic king level. It was said that a feathered phoenix was inferior to a chicken, but no matter what, the door of the War Merit Pavilion was guarded by the 2 of them. In the future he might have to frequently enter the War Merit Pavilion, so he naturally did not want to offend them. Not only did he not want to offend them, he even wanted to build a good relationship with them. Not to mention other things, these 2 had guarded the War Merit Pavilion for God knows how many years, so they definitely knew many secrets that ordinary people did not know. In the future he might need to consult them on something. This kid is here again. The golden dragon on the left revealed an interested expression, its golden vertical tail looking up and down at Lu Yi. You're actually still alive. The silver dragon also spoke human language. The last time Lu Yi came, it said that it did not know if Lu Yi could live long. It seemed that to them, being able to enter the War Merit Pavilion was not a good thing. Generally it meant a short life. And you've become much stronger. Interesting. The golden dragon's upper body poked out from the door and circled around Lu Yi. Its huge head was almost touching Lu Ye's head, its tongue flicking in and out of its mouth. Lu Ye's expression was calm. Thank you seniors for your concern. This junior is doing well. I even had a small opportunity, so my strength has improved slightly. Concern? The golden dragon's eyes revealed a human-like look of astonishment, then it laughed out loud. It shrank back and said to Inbai, he said that we are concerned about him. The silver dragon said, strictly speaking, we are indeed concerned about him. We are concerned about when he will die. Jinbai turned and looked at Lu Yi. Don't die too early. We made a bet before that you will not die within 3 years. Lu Yi was curious. Who bet that I will live? The golden dragon sneered. It bet that you will definitely die within 3 years. I bet that you will live for 3 years. Lu Yi nodded. I see. No one bet that he would live. They all bet that he would die. The only difference was the length of time. Since the two seniors are in such a good mood, how about I join in? Oh? You want to bet too? I bet that I can live for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, or even longer. The silver dragon's vertical tail was filled with an unfriendly look. Kid, since you want to bet, what are your stakes? How about these? As Lu Yi spoke, he took out the 4 types of beast meat he bought from the Tianji treasure house. In the future, every time I come here, I will bring some food for the two seniors. Just treat it as a bet. It's just a small favor. The golden dragon closed its mouth before it finished speaking. The main reason was that its saliva was too strong. The two dragons had been trapped here for thousands of years. Although some humans came and went during this period, they always came and went in a hurry. No one thought of bringing them food. They also couldn't ask for it. Although they were trapped, they still wanted to save face. Until today. After not smelling blood for thousands of years, the two dragons had almost forgotten the taste of flesh and blood. Especially when Lu Yi bought the meat this time, it was not ordinary. It was all demon commander level meat. Naturally, it could arouse their appetite. While the golden flood dragon was speaking, Lu Yi had already thrown out the beast meat. The two flood dragons each took 2 pieces and chewed. The golden flood dragon still couldn't finish his words. Don't even think about bribing us. Not bad, not bad. Oh, it's delicious. The silver dragon nodded at the side. Lu Yi had a smile on his face. He looked at this scene with gratification. It could be confirmed that these two dragons were living creatures. It was just that for some reason, they were trapped here and were acting as guards at the door of the War Merit Pavilion. At this moment, they no longer had the arrogance and cruelty from before. They looked like reincarnated hungry ghosts. The way they ate was as ugly as it could be. The 4 large pieces of beast meat were swallowed in a few bites. The silver dragon looked at Lu Yi eagerly, looking like it wanted more. Although the golden dragon didn't show it so obviously, it obviously had the same meaning. He clicked to download the best book chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud. Chapter 847. Of course, Lu Yi couldn't possibly feed them until they were full. With the 2 flood dragons' enormous bodies, it would cost an enormous amount of merit points to feed them. This was only his first try. He might have to come here more often in the future. Lu Yi could afford to spend 10 or 20,000 merit points each time, but he couldn't afford to spend too much. Kid, not bad. The golden flood dragon opened its mouth, its tone slightly friendlier. It was a perfect example of what it meant to eat from others. Next time, remember to bring more. That bit of flesh isn't enough to fill my stomach, the silver flood dragon warned. Junior will remember, Lu Yi replied. The golden flood dragon said, I've already explained the rules of the War Merit Pavilion to you last time. Do you still remember? Lu Yi nodded. Everything in the War Merit Pavilion can only be used for personal use. Everything related to the War Merit Pavilion cannot be revealed to anyone. It's good that you remember. The golden flood dragon retracted its body as it spoke. Go in. The 2 dragons coiled around each other, quickly forming a concentric circle. The door of the War Merit Pavilion opened with a kacha sound. Lu Yi stepped inside. Many stone platforms immediately came into view, and each of them had a treasure that was rarely seen in the outside world. The last time he came here, he didn't have much time. Because he had borrowed the Heavenly Secret Pillar from the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance, There were many people lining up behind him. Ma Guanhua looked around but didn't investigate everything. This time he was in his own spiritual land, so he wasn't in such a hurry. It was a good opportunity to investigate. Lu Yi skipped over the places he had investigated last time and headed deeper into the War Merit Pavilion. As he walked, his heart pounded. Every item here was extremely precious and rare. They couldn't be easily found in the Heavenly Secret Treasury. Take the supplement aperture pill for example. The supplement aperture pills in the Heavenly Secret Treasury were almost sold out, but they could still be bought here. There were many strange treasures with different effects, but there were also many high-quality magic tools. The magic tools that could be placed here were all the best of the best. Lu Yi even saw a top-quality magic tool long saber. With his current status he could naturally afford it. However, Lu Yi only glanced at it. He was satisfied with the mountain plate saber. Even if the quality of the mountain plate saber wasn't as good as the mountain plate saber, the one that suited him was the best. As Lu Yi walked further in, he was surprised to find that the stone platforms here were all shrouded in a hazy white light, making it impossible for him to see what was inside. Naturally, he couldn't tell what was on the stone platforms. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yi suspected that it was because his cultivation was not high enough that he could not see the true appearance of the treasures on the stone platforms. From the looks of it, if he wanted to see more good things, he would have to work hard to raise his cultivation. After roughly browsing through all the treasures he could see, Lu Yi quickly walked up to a stone platform and raised his hand to grab the treasure on the platform. Although he had obtained the treasure, there were no signs of his battle achievements being deducted. It was an additional reward for this trip to the Wuxia continent. The moment Lu Yi returned to the Cloudy River battlefield through the portal, he received the guidance of Heaven's will. He had the right to choose any treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. Since he could choose at will, he naturally didn't care about the value. He could take whatever he wanted. This additional reward should be Heaven's will commend him for his actions in the Wuxia continent. Of the 4 pillars of Heaven's will, other than the one that was given to Ing Wuji to place in Mount Meru, the others were all placed by Lu Yi himself. Not to mention finding the location of the secret realms and finding ways to enter the secret realms, it was troublesome. Moreover, before Heaven's will of the 9 prefectures established a connection with the Wuxia continent, Lu Yi had also killed many members of the Corpse clan. These were not included in his battle achievements. Heaven's will of course wouldn't ignore all the hard work he had put in. Therefore, Lu Yi obtained the right to choose any treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. As for whether the others had similar additional rewards, Lu Yi didn't know. Even if there were, it should only be an additional amount of battle achievements. It wouldn't be like him. With this additional reward in hand, Lu Yi felt a great sense of security. Only then did he step in front of the stone platform where the golden spirit lots were placed. He exchanged for 10 golden spirit lots. Including the 20 golden spirit lots that he originally had, he now had a total of 30 golden spirit lots. With such wealth, it wouldn't be a problem to say that he was the number 1 in Cloud River. Even those in the True Lake stage might not be able to obtain so many golden spirit lots at once. Advancing to the True Lake stage was settled. As a result, he was only left with 4,672 battle achievements. He didn't use them all mainly because he wanted to keep some for himself. Who knows, he might need them in the future. After receiving the rewards and exchanging for the items, Lu Yi walked out of the War Merit Pavilion. Under the gaze of the 2 water dragons, his figure quickly faded. He could faintly hear the silver water dragon asking him to come earlier next time. Returning to his wooden house, Lu Yi first urged the power of the talent tree to swallow the strange fire and pill fire that he had bought this time. Seeing that the color of the leaves had become brighter, but there were still no signs of them being ignited, he couldn't help but feel disappointed. Lu Yi was still looking forward to this new spirit rune that had yet to appear. However, the spirit runes on the talent tree had to be ignited before they could be checked. Right now, the state of the tree was neither up nor down, which made him feel very uncomfortable. Although Lu Yi still had some earth core fire in reserve, it was for emergency use. If one day the talent tree didn't have enough fuel, or if he was in a bad situation, these earth core fire would come in handy. Moreover, even if he swallowed the earth core fire, he wouldn't be able to completely ignite the leaves. He could only leave it for the future. Cultivate, cultivate. Lu Yi calmed himself down and shouted. He took out all 30 golden spirit lots and placed them in front of him. So many, he exclaimed. The golden radiance was so bright that she couldn't open her eyes. As usual, Lu Yi constructed a small spirit gathering funnel on his body. Only then did he pick up a golden spirit lot and crush it. The golden powder swirled and turned into a vortex. From this vortex, a large amount of pure spirit energy immediately poured out and wrapped around the place where Lu Yi was. This spiritual energy seemed to be inexhaustible, but it didn't dissipate at all, instead condensing within a meter of Lu Yi's body. Under the guidance of the small funnel, this spiritual energy was quickly devoured and transformed into Lu Yi's most powerful asset. Lu Yi sat down cross-legged and immersed himself in studying the broken source of Dragon's soaring realm. He didn't believe that he couldn't imprint a master who cultivated the saber technique. A golden spirit lot could last for almost a day and night. When the efficacy of the spirit lot was exhausted and the golden vortex disappeared, Yi would take out another one and crush it. Lu Yi had the small spirit gathering funnel to assist him in his cultivation, so he didn't need to worry about anything at all. He could just focus on his own matters. Time passed by and the golden spirit lots were constantly consumed. Until one day when Lu Yi opened his eyes again, he found that he had broken through to the Cloud River Realm 9th Order at some point. And the golden spirit lot in front of him only seemed to have consumed a dozen or so. Compared to other cultivators, Lu Yi had a great advantage by cultivating with the help of spirit lots. This was because the duration of using spirit lots was fixed, almost a day and night. Among cultivators of the same level, no one could obtain as many benefits as Lu Yi. The small spirit gathering funnels continuously swallowed the pure spirit energy gushing out of the golden vortex. The effect of a single funnel wasn't too obvious, but every time Lu Yi constructed a small funnel on his body, the effect was extremely terrifying. This was also the biggest reason why his strength had been able to advance by leaps and bounds in the Cloud River tier. The same golden spiritual lot, in comparison, had brought him 2 times, 3 times, or even more benefits than other cultivators. Even if Yi and Hupo were cultivating beside him, they wouldn't get a share of what he deserved. The Cloud River Realm 9th Order was only one step away from the True Lake Realm. Lu Yi's mood was calm. He only checked a little, and after confirming that there were no hidden dangers in his breakthrough, he continued. Lu Yi had already confirmed this, so when he realized that something might have happened in the outside world, he immediately pulled his mind back and opened his eyes. Beside him, Yi had also stopped cultivating and was looking around with a stunned expression. Lu Yi turned his head and couldn't help but frown, because what he saw was extremely bizarre. This was his wooden house and the furnishings were extremely simple, but now the scenery in the house seemed to overlap with another blurry scene. The blurry scene was constantly changing, making it impossible to see clearly. At first glance, it was as if another spacetime had overlapped with the spacetime he was in. Not only that, Lu Yi could clearly feel a repulsive force enveloping him. This repulsive force was very familiar. He had felt it when he broke through to the Cloud River Realm in the Spirit Stream battlefield, and after he broke through to the Cloud River Realm, the repulsive force also expanded to the limit, directly sending him out of the Spirit Stream battlefield. Therefore, when he sensed this familiar repulsive force permeating the soaring dragon realm source, the number of Spirit Stream fragments continued to decrease. Lu Yi would wake up every 2 or 3 days, so he didn't have to worry about suddenly breaking through to the True Lake Realm and leaving the Cloud River battlefield. He was prepared to stop cultivating when he was one step away from the True Lake Realm. The expansion of the Spirit Land should have been completed. Although the many spirit arrays he had arranged before covered a large area, as the Spirit Land expanded, some changes would need to be made. Before leaving the Cloud River battlefield, these things had to be completed. But man proposes, God disposes. Lu Yi didn't expect that his plan would be so perfect, but there would be so many problems. After returning to the Spirit Land for a full month, while he was imprinting the Soaring Dragon Realm source and cultivating with a certain master in the Soaring Dragon Realm, his mind suddenly received a huge shock. He immediately reacted. Something had happened in the outside world. The process of imprinting the source could be interrupted at any time, so Lu Yi's first reaction was that he was about to break through to the True Lake Realm? But after careful examination he clearly wasn't. Although he wasn't far from the True Lake Realm, it wasn't time for him to break through yet. And what was this blurry scene that seemed to overlap with spacetime? Chapter 848. There was some movement outside. Li Baxin and the others should have been alarmed. Lu Yi hurriedly got up and pushed the door open. He saw Li Baxin and the others looking up at the sky with shocked expressions. Following their gazes, Lu Yi couldn't help but stare blankly. The scene in the sky was even more bizarre than the scene in the wooden house. As far as the eye could see, a huge floating continent stretched across the void. The floating continent should still be very far from the ground, but it already covered the sky and earth. Even the scorching sun in the sky was completely blocked, casting a huge shadow over the entire Cloud River battlefield. At this moment, almost everyone in the Cloud River battlefield could see the vastness of the floating continent as long as they raised their heads. The floating continent didn't look complete, as if it was a part of an even more magnificent land. What was even more frightening was that the floating continent was slowly but steadily pressing down on the Cloud River battlefield. The phenomenon of overlapping spacetime was caused by this. It was hard to imagine how such a huge floating continent could lie in the void. What was even harder to imagine was what kind of disaster it would cause if it landed on the Cloud River battlefield. Fourth senior brother, what's going on? Lu Yi asked. I'm not sure. Li Baxin shook his head. He didn't see as much as Lu Yi. He was also cultivating when he sensed something strange and came out to investigate. Regardless, we shouldn't stay in this dangerous place for long. Junior brother, let's return to the 9 provinces first. Li Baxin turned to look at Lu Yi. Lu Yi felt the increasingly obvious repulsive force around him and nodded. We have to return to the 9 provinces. The repulsive force was clearly the work of the 9 provinces. Not only him but all the cultivators on the Cloud River battlefield would be repelled. Therefore, even if someone wanted to stay and see what was going on, they wouldn't be able to do so. The shocking change made the wolves in Huitian Valley restless. Lu Yi and the others could return to the 9 provinces to hide, but the wolves couldn't leave the Cloud River battlefield. They were born on the Cloud River battlefield and most of them would die of old age there. Unless they were favored by a cultivator and became a pet beast, they could enter and leave the Cloud River battlefield with the cultivator. If there were only 1 or 2 demon wolves, Lu Yi and the others could still bring them back to the 9 regions, but now there were more than 300 wolves gathered in the spiritual land. With such a huge number, it was impossible to bring them back. As a natural barrier for the spiritual land, these demon wolves would play an irreplaceable role in protecting the spiritual land. Li Baxin seemed to have noticed the worry in Lu Ye's heart and said, we can't do anything about them. Moreover, I have a feeling that this isn't a natural disaster. The workings of the heavens should be able to deal with it. Lu Yi nodded. If such a situation was really a natural disaster, then other than the cultivators who could return to the 9 provinces, there would be no more living creatures in the entire Cloud River battlefield. Even the cities would be turned into nothing. While the two of them were talking, the invisible repulsive force around them suddenly became much stronger. Lu Ye's vision began to spin, and he realized that he had been expelled from the Cloud River battlefield. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in the Tianji Hall of the 9 regions main sect. 2 figures suddenly appeared beside him. One was Giant Armor, and the other was Wuxia, who he had just parted with not long ago. Cultivators who had been expelled from the Cloud River battlefield would all appear in the Tianji Hall of their own sect. Wuxia was eating something at this moment, and her cheeks were bulging. She was at a loss when she suddenly returned to the 9 provinces. She hurriedly swallowed the food in her mouth and asked blankly, Lu Yi, what happened? I'm not sure. Why are all of you back? Shui Yuan's voice rang out. She had sensed the auras of Lu Yi and the others, and had come to investigate. Ever since they had advanced to the Cloud River tier and entered the Cloud River battlefield, only Lu Yi had returned twice. Wuxia and Giant Armor had remained in the Cloud River battlefield. Now that the 3 of them had appeared together, Shui Yuan was naturally surprised. Second senior sister. The 3 of them bowed. Something happened at the Cloud River battlefield, Lu Yi explained. He recounted the abnormality from before in detail. Second senior sister, do you know what that floating continent is? Why were we expelled from the Cloud River battlefield? Shui Yuan was surprised. There was such a thing? She suddenly thought of something. Now that you mention it, I seem to have heard the old man mention something similar before. However, he mentioned it casually back then, so I didn't ask much. Why don't we ask the old man? He's old, so he should know something. Lu Yi nodded. I'll go pay a visit to the sect master now. There's no hurry. Shui Yuan smiled slightly. The old man has guests over there. Let's wait for a while. Lu Yi immediately felt guilty. Could it be that the sect master went to rob some other sect's disciples again? After tasting the sweetness of it once, the sect master had done such things many times in recent years. Now, all the major sects in the War Province would shake their heads at the mention of the Jade Blood sect's Tang Yifeng. The sect master's image of virtue and prestige, which he had painstakingly cultivated for many years, had long collapsed in the cultivation world of the War Province. Now, when Tang Yifeng was mentioned, he could already be associated with the word bandit. Ordinary bandits robbed for wealth, but Tang Yifeng robbed people. As a result, the major cultivation sects in the War province had to secretly recruit disciples, and no longer dared to make a big fuss about it. The sect master's evil claws even extended to several provinces adjacent to the War province. The sect master had paid so much in exchange for the prosperity of the Jade Blood sect in the Spirit Stream realm, and top-notch geniuses could be found everywhere. Shui Yuan laughed. Ever since Madame Yun took him as a strong man, the old man has no time to go out. That's good. Lu Yi let out a long breath. When she turned her head, she saw Giant Armor's hand on the Qinji pillar, frowning. He probably wanted to see if he could enter the Cloud River battlefield. Something had happened there, but the wolf pack remained in the spiritual land, which made him quite worried. Fourth senior brother said that it shouldn't be a natural disaster. Don't worry too much. Lu Yi comforted him. Giant Armor nodded sullenly and didn't say anything. The old man should be done talking. Let's go. Shui Yuan's expression changed as she sensed something. She was now a divine ocean realm cultivator, so her perception was naturally much sharper than Lu Yi and the others. Shui Yuan walked out of the Qinji hall and rushed to the conference hall, where she waited outside. The sect master's voice came from inside. Young friend, you should think it over carefully. Our Jade Blood sect is alone in the Force province. In fact, it's not suitable for your sect to rely on. If you're interested, I can recommend a few top sections. I don't dare to promise you anything else, but I'll give you some face. Another person's voice sounded. I've thought it through. After coming to the 9 province, I went straight to you. Other sects may be stronger than your sect, but our sect only recognizes one person and only your sect. I didn't hide anything from you before. You should understand the whole story. The two of them seemed to have finished their discussion and were walking towards the exit. Since that's the case, choose an auspicious day and announce it to the War province. Thank you, Sect Master Tang. Outside the hall, Lu Ye's expression suddenly became very strange because the voice coming from inside the hall sounded a little familiar. Wuxia, who was standing beside him, also showed a surprised look. She poked Lu Ye's waist with her finger and whispered, "Did I hear it wrong?" "I think so too." Shui Yuan looked confused. "What are you talking about?" Before Lu Yi could answer, the sect leader had already stepped out of the hall. Looking at him, the sect leader had the demeanor of a transcendent being. It was very easy for strangers to have a good impression of him. When Lu Yi first met the sect leader, he felt that this old man was a trustworthy person, so he asked him for help. There was another person beside the sect master. Valiant and formidable, a woman dressed as a man. She did not lose the softness of a woman, but also the strength of a man. The combination of contradictions added a strange temperament. She looked up and met Lu Ye's eyes full of astonishment. She smiled slightly. "Senior brother Lu, we meet again." Huasi's long eyelashes blinked. She couldn't believe her eyes and she couldn't believe that she would see this person here. Lu Yi was also so shocked that he forgot to say hello to her for a moment. "What? Senior brother, are you surprised to see me?" How could he not be surprised? Why is Palace Master Pang here? Lu Yi was puzzled. Previously, he thought that the Peerless Continent would become a mystery realm of the 9 states, where Cloud River tier cultivators could enter to gain experience. Therefore, he never thought that Pang Huanin would appear in the 9 states, and even come to the Jade Blood sect. However, thinking about it carefully, the Peerless Continent already had a Heaven Mystery Pillar, and the Heaven Mystery Realm of the 9 states had established a connection with the Peerless Continent. Since the cultivators of the 9 states could go to the Peerless Continent, then the people of the Peerless Continent should also be able to come to the 9 states. From now on, the Peerless Continent no longer exists, and we are also people of the 9 states, Pang Huanin explained with a smile. Obviously, she was in a good mood after seeing Lu Ye's appearance. "What do you mean?" Lu Yi was confused. "How should I put it?" Pang Huanin pondered for a moment before saying, "After you left, I received guidance from the Heaven Mystery Realm of the 9 states, and it asked me if I was willing to let the Peerless Continent merge with the 9 states. Of course I was willing. Then, I made some efforts and the entire Peerless Continent migrated to the 9 states. This journey was very magical. If senior brother wants to hear it, I'll tell you later." Migrated? Lu Yi felt like he was listening to a heavenly book. It was a fragment of a broken continent and there were no people there. How could it migrate? However, he soon realized something. The huge floating continent above the Cloud River battlefield is the Peerless Continent? Huasi suddenly came to her senses. If that was the case, then it made sense. The guidance from the Heaven Mystery Realm said that because the origin of the Peerless Continent is incomplete, it is not qualified to merge with the 9 states. It can only merge with the Cloud River battlefield. Once the merger is complete, any cultivator on the Cloud River battlefield can go to the Peerless Continent at will. As for how the merger will take place, I don't know. Moreover, she appeared directly in the Jade Blood Sect's Heaven Mystery Hall. Clearly, the Heaven Mystery Realm had made things convenient for her. Otherwise, how could she, a person from the Peerless Continent, find the Jade Blood Sect so quickly? Chapter 849. When Pang Huanin suddenly appeared in the Heaven's secret hall of the Jade Blood Sect, Shui Yuan thought that an enemy had invaded. Fortunately, Pang Huanin's cultivation level was not high, so she was immediately taken down. Realm Fusion. The sect master, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. Lu Yi hurriedly bowed and asked humbly, "Sect master, so the floating continent that suddenly appeared in the sky above the Cloud River battlefield is really the Wushuang continent?" It was indeed a bit surreal. The Wushuang continent had been eradicated by the cultivators of the 9 states. In just a month, the Wushuang continent had moved to the Cloud River battlefield. This was definitely the work of Heaven's secret. It was definitely not as simple as Pang Huanin said. As for what method Heaven's secret used to move such a huge realm fragment to the Cloud River battlefield, it was not something that Lu Yi could figure out. Even Pang Huanin might not know. The sect master stroked his beard. It should be right. My master has experienced something like this before. Lu Yi did not know how old the sect master was now. As for his master, he was an even older figure. It is said that the Cloud River battlefield was not that big in the beginning. It gradually expanded by merging various broken or ruined realms, including the Spirit Stream battlefield. Lu Yi still had a vague idea of how big the Cloud River battlefield was. Compared to the Wushuang continent, it was definitely more than 100 times bigger. He had also wondered how such a huge battlefield was born, but he did not delve into it. He used to think that it was formed by Heaven's secret splitting a part of the 9 states. But now it seemed that was not the case. The birth and expansion of the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield were closely related to broken realms like the Wushuang continent. The fusion of realms is not an easy matter, and it is not a simple matter of territorial expansion. The entire process may take a very long time. During this period of time, it is not suitable for Cloud River tier cultivators like you to remain in the Cloud River battlefield. This is also the reason why you were expelled from the battlefield. Lu Yi suddenly understood. What about the monsters born in the Cloud River battlefield? The giant armor immediately pricked up its ears and listened attentively with a nervous expression. The sect master said, "During the fusion process, the spiritual power of heaven and earth will surge. It is not suitable for cultivators to stay, mainly because it will hinder their cultivation. In fact, there is no danger to their lives, so the monsters born in the Cloud River battlefield will not be affected too much. At most, they will be frightened." Hearing the sect master's words, the nervous giant armor finally relaxed. In other words, he wouldn't be able to enter the Cloudy River battlefield for the time being. Lu Yi asked, "That's right. If it's short, it'll take 10 days to half a month. If it's long, it'll take several months before it stabilizes." Lu Yi took the lead. He was now a 9th Order Cloud River realm cultivator and had a lot of golden spirit sticks in his possession. Whether he cultivated in the Cloud River battlefield or in the 9 provinces, there was no difference. The only pity was that he didn't have the time to rearrange the formation in the spiritual land. The expansion of the spiritual land had already ended. From a small spiritual land that could only accommodate a few people, it had jumped to a large spiritual land that could accommodate 100 people. Naturally, some changes had to be made to the array that had been set up previously. He had initially planned to wait until he had cultivated to the peak stage of the Cloud River tier and was prepared to leave the Cloud River battlefield before dealing with these matters. Who would have thought that such an unforeseen event would occur? Even Pang Huanin, the master of Ziwei Dao Palace, had appeared in the Jade Blood sect. "Young friend Pang, since you're familiar with Ye, let him guide you to investigate. Ao Mountain is vast and has many spiritual peaks. It won't be a problem to accommodate your Dao Palace. The sect master has spoken." "Thank you, sect master Tang." Pang Huanin bowed and turned to look at Lu Yi. She playfully blinked her left eye and said, "Thank you, senior brother." Lu Yi was puzzled. "What are you going to do?" The sect master said, "Young friend Pang wants to establish a sect in the 9 provinces, But you know the situation on her side, yeah. I heard that you went to the Peerless Continent to help them solve the problem. They have no foundation in the 9 provinces, so they want to join our sect as a superior sect. This old master has already agreed to this. Take her to find some spiritual peaks and use them as the foundation for the establishment of the sect. Consider it a congratulatory gift from our Jade Blood sect. Only then did Lu Yi understand the purpose of Pang Huanin's visit. The so-called superior sect and inferior sect were not rare in the 9 provinces. Many newly established sects would choose the nearby powerful sects to attach themselves to. This way they could gain the support of the superior sect to a certain extent. When the disciples went out, they could also get help from the superior sect's cultivators, so they wouldn't have to fight alone. The relationship between the superior sect and superior sect was somewhat similar to that of a subordinate sect. The most recent superior sect that was related to the Jade Blood sect was the Pill Heart sect. However, the superior sect used to be powerful, but now it was the other way around. The Pill Heart sect was second grade, while the Jade Blood sect was desolate. The Peerless Continent was moved to the Cloud River battlefield by some strange means by Tianji. In the future, the Peerless Continent would no longer exist. It would only become a part of the Cloud River battlefield. The cultivators of the Peerless Continent naturally couldn't stay there forever. In the past, they were limited by the world and could only cultivate to the peak of the Cloud River realm. They couldn't pry into the mysteries of the next realm. However, for any cultivator, a higher realm was an irresistible temptation. Therefore, the cultivators of the Peerless Continent had to leave the Cloud River battlefield and come to the 9 provinces. After the previous battle, the number of people of the Ziwei Daoist Palace didn't decrease. Instead, it increased, mainly because they absorbed a large number of cultivators from the strongholds who came to support them. Since these people came, they were the cultivators of the 9 provinces and needed a place to settle down. Therefore, Pang Huanin had to establish a sect in the 9 provinces and rebuild the Ziwei Daoist Palace. Unless she was willing to disband the Daoist Palace and let the cultivators find their own way out. During the migration, Pang Huanin learned a lot about the 9 provinces from Tianji and made the decision to rebuild the Ziwei Daoist Palace. Therefore, she immediately took the first step and went directly to the Jade Blood sect with the help of Tianji. Originally, the sect leader didn't like this kind of thing. After all, he had learned a lesson from the Pill Heart sect. However, after listening to Pang Huanin's detailed explanation, the sect leader changed his mind. With his eyesight, how could he not see that Pang Huanin was a genius? In a broken world like the Peerless Continent, her achievements in the Cloud River realm were not inferior to Feng Ruli and the others. If she was really born in the 9 provinces, her foundation must be stronger. Moreover, as someone who had experienced it, the sect leader also felt that this woman seemed to have a good impression of Lu Yi. In addition, the Jade Blood sect's middle level was low. If they wanted to develop in the future, they would have to consider more. If they accepted the Ziwei Daoist Palace as a subordinate sect, this shortcoming could be fixed in an instant. They didn't have to wait for their disciples to grow slowly. On the other hand, the Ziwei Daoist Palace lacked top powerhouses, so the 2 sects could complement each other. However, the sect leader was an upright person. As a Divine Sea Realm cultivator, he didn't hide anything from Pang Huanin. During the conversation, he told Pang Huanin the current situation of the Jade Blood sect in detail. He even persuaded Pang Huanin to choose another sect as her superior sect. He was even willing to be the go-between. Pang Huanin naturally refused. As she had said before, she came to the 9 provinces this time only for the Jade Blood sect. She didn't care about anything else. In this way, the matter of accepting the Jade Blood sect as their superior sect after the Ziwei Daoist Palace was established was finalized. Since he wanted to establish a sect, he had to choose a piece of land as the foundation of the sect. The military province was vast, so there were many places suitable for establishing a sect. However, the sect leader obviously wanted to give a part of Ao Mountain to the Ziwei Daoist Palace as their foundation in the 9 provinces. This was understandable. Ao Mountain was very big. Even the Jade Blood sect in its heyday couldn't make the best use of it. It was not a problem to accommodate 2 sections. Lu Yi was stunned. In this short period of time, many strange things had happened one after another. Even with his temperament, he was still shocked. Senior Martial Brother? Pang Huanin saw that Lu Yi was in a daze and called out softly. Lu Yi nodded. Come with me. After saying that, he soared into the sky and flew in a random direction. Pang Huanin smiled slightly and followed him. Shuiyuan looked at the direction in which the 2 left and thought for a while. Then she turned to look at Hua Xi. Junior Martial Sister, you don't want to follow them? Huaxi smiled gently. Why should I follow them? Shueyuan said earnestly, Junior Martial Sister, you must act early. If you are late it will be too late. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Senior Martial Sister, I happen to be free recently. I have some questions about medical skills that I want to ask you. Huaxi interrupted Shueyuan's words and went forward to hold her arm. This was not a lie. In fact, Huaxi had wanted to ask Shueyuan about medical skills a long time ago. However, she had been cultivating intensely and didn't have the opportunity. This time there was a problem in the Cloud River battlefield. All the cultivators were temporarily unable to enter it. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Although the inheritance she received also had some medical skills, the most important one was still poison. However, she had never forgotten that she was a medical cultivator. There was also a person who was often injured and needed her care. The two women left, leaving the sect leader and Zhu Jia staring at each other. The sect leader was actually very optimistic about this burly disciple. This was because he had long seen Zhu Jia's talent. However, Zhu Jia's personality was dull. In addition, he had only stayed in the Jade Blood sect for a few days. Therefore, the sect leader knew almost nothing about Zhu Jia. He was going to ask Zhu Jia if he had any difficulties in cultivation. The world only knew that Tang Yifeng of the Jade Blood sect was a powerful Dharma cultivator. However, very few people knew that he cultivated both Dharma and body. It was naturally not a problem for him to guide a junior who was also a body cultivator. Unexpectedly, before he could say anything, Giant Armor bowed to him and walked away without saying a word. The sect leader's expression was melancholic. To think that he, the sect leader of the Jade Blood sect, was once a person who could summon the wind and summon the rain. However, today he didn't even have the opportunity to guide his disciples. How could he be so miserable? A voice suddenly sounded by his ear. Old fart, why aren't you coming over? The sect leader quivered and hurriedly rushed towards Ming Xinfeng. At the same time he hurriedly responded, I'm coming, I'm coming. Chapter 850. The land of the 9 prefectures is a little different from what I imagined. Pang Huanin suddenly spoke as they continued to fly at a leisurely pace. Lu Yi casually asked, what does 9 regions look like in Palace Master's mind? I call you Senior Brother, but Senior Brother calls me Palace Lord. It's a little distant. Pang Huanin did not answer Lu Ye's question. Instead, she cared about something else. Senior Brother, how should I address Junior Sister Hua? That's my real name, Lu Yi answered honestly. Senior Brother, why don't you try calling me that? Pang Huanin? The word Pang can be removed. Junior Sister. Pang Huanin chuckled and shook her head. She didn't want to dwell on these details any longer. Just do as you wish, Senior Brother. After pondering for a moment he said, previously, when I saw the amazing demeanor of Senior Brother and the others, I thought that the land of the 9 continents was vast and abundant in resources. However, when I really came here I found that it was somewhat different. Are you disappointed? How is that possible? Pang Huanin said, compared to the environment we used to live in, the land of the 9 prefectures is a place we have always dreamed of. Now that we are here we are overjoyed. How can we be disappointed? The ancestors of the Holy Ji Palace have sacrificed generation after generation in order to ensure that the undead race would not be troubled by the undead race and have a stable environment to live in. Now that this has been achieved we have gained even more. After pausing for a moment she continued, I have some understanding of the vast land and abundant resources of the 9 prefectures. Although I haven't been to other places, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth doesn't seem to be rich. How could Senior Martial Brother have such a cultivation base at such a young age? This was what puzzled Pang Huanin the most. Based on her perception, the heaven and earth spirit chi in the 9 states was not even comparable to the original Ziwei Taoist palace. It was only slightly better than the Wushuang continent. Logically speaking, it was impossible for such an environment to give birth to a powerful cultivator. But in reality, there was a true lake above the Cloud River as well as a divine sea. Just the 2 divine sea cultivators of the Jade Blood sect gave her an unfathomable feeling. Previously, when she suddenly appeared in the divine secret hall, Shui Yuan arrived in an instant. Just a glance was enough to immobilize her. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in 9 regions is indeed not rich. However, the Spirit Stream tier cultivators had their own Spirit Stream battlefield, and the Cloud River tier cultivators had their own Cloud River battlefield. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth in these 2 places was still very rich, and it was not something that the 9 states could compare with. Moreover, there are many methods to increase the concentration of heaven and earth spirit chi in these two places. On the spirit stream battlefield, the various garrisons had the support of the heaven's fate pillars. On the Cloud River battlefield there were spirit lands. Both of these could be considered methods to increase the density of spirit chi. What? Pang Huanin was even more confused. I don't know either. I believe heavenly fate is encouraging the cultivators at these two levels to enter the battlefield to hone themselves. It was precisely because the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the 9 states wasn't very rich that the majority of spirit stream tier cultivators would stay on the spirit stream tier battlefield, while the majority of Cloud River tier cultivators would stay on the Cloud River tier battlefield. In this way, the cultivators of the two major camps would constantly clash against each other, becoming each other's whetstones. Lu Yi had thought about these things before, so she was able to answer Pang Huanin's question with ease. In the future, when the Palace Lord establishes a sect in the 9 states, the Ziwei Dao Palace will have its own base in the Spirit Stream battlefield. At that time, the Palace Lord will be able to see the situation clearly. Pang Huanin looked pensive. She no longer corrected Lu Yi for calling her Palace Master. Since it was his habit to shout, he would just let him shout. Suddenly she smiled. No matter what, we are finally in the 9 states. She was once curious about what kind of magical realm the 9 states was that it could cultivate a group of dragons and phoenixes like Lu Yi. The more she interacted with Lu Yi and the others, the more she yearned for the 9 states. Therefore, when she received the guidance of the 9 states' heavenly fate and had the opportunity to come here, Pang Huanin agreed without hesitation. Because she knew that this was the only way out for the Wushuang continent. Although the zombie disaster on the Wushuang continent had been resolved, the cultivation environment of the entire world was much worse than before. In the past, there were still a few secret realms of the human race. Now the earth veins in the secret realms had dried up. The situation would only get worse. Integrating the Wushuang continent into the 9 states would not only satisfy her own wish, but also find a way out for the Wushuang continent. When did the Palace Lord receive the guidance of heavenly fate? Lu Yi was curious. Pang Huanin smiled slyly. Actually, when the reinforcements of the 9 states arrived at the Wushuang continent, I already had a feeling. However, I hadn't made a decision at that time. When I sent senior brother away, I made a decision. From the perspective of the person involved, Pang Huanin was extremely envious of the cultivators of the 9 states because they had the support of an entire realm. Pang Huanin and the Wushuang continent had never experienced the feeling of being able to rely on an entire realm and be protected by it. Since you've decided to join the Jade Blood sect, you must have some understanding of the situation in the 9 states. The 9 states is not a safe place. I understand. I know that the Haotian Alliance and the Myriad Demon Ridge are fighting against each other. Since you're on the Jade Blood sect's side, you're on the Haotian Alliance's side. In the future, the cultivators of the Dao Palace will have to fight against the people of the Myriad Demon Ridge. Where there are people, there will be fights. The cultivators of the Dao Palace have experienced the darkest times, so they don't lack the courage and determination to fight. I believe that they can lay a foundation in the 9 states. Since the Palace Lord has such awareness, that's enough. Lu Yi nodded. What about the other 2 secret realms? Pang Huanin shook her head. I don't know what they will decide and I don't want to care about them. However, the situation of the 2 secret realms is different from that of the Dao Palace. The inheritance of the Dao Palace has never been cut off, so I have the idea of establishing a sect in the 9 states. The inheritance of the 2 secret realms has long been fragmented, and the major and minor families have the power. What they decide to do in the future has nothing to do with the Dao Palace. However, they will probably find their own way out. If we meet again in the future, we can help each other if we're on the same side, but if we're enemies, the Dao Palace will not show mercy. While talking, the 2 of them flew while admiring the beautiful mountains and rivers. Such a large mountain range is the territory of the Ao Mountain? Pang Huanin was amazed. The Jade Blood sect didn't seem to have many people, but it occupied such a large area, which was really admirable. She thought that she had a basic understanding of the 9 states, but when she saw it with her own eyes, she realized that she was too narrow-minded. Should be, right? Lu Yi looked a little embarrassed. Should be? Pang Huanin was puzzled. Lu Yi touched her nose. To tell you the truth, this is the first time I've left the sect. Pang Huanin looked at Lu Yi in surprise, and then she was overjoyed. Lu Yi explained, when I was taken in as a disciple by the sect master, I was ambushed on my way back to the sect. In order to avoid the aftermath of the battle, the sect master sent me to the Spirit Stream battlefield. I spent almost the entire Spirit Stream realm in the Spirit Stream battlefield, and when I returned to the sect, I didn't go more than 30 miles away from the main peak. It was the same when I was in the Cloud River realm. So, I don't know much more about the 9 states than you do. I see. Pang Huanin stopped smiling. Then let's walk around and see more? Okay. Lu Yi took the lead. Not long after, when the two of them flew over a spirit mountain, they suddenly sensed that there was a battle going on below them. Judging from the shockwaves of the battle, the two parties involved were both cultivators at the Cloud River tier. Lu Yi frowned. His figure flickered, and he rushed in the direction of the battle. Pang Huanin followed closely behind. A moment later, Lu Yi landed somewhere on the spirit mountain. As far as the eye could see, a middle-aged man and an elderly man were locked in a fierce battle for some unknown reason, their spirit chi surging endlessly. Both of them were not young, but their cultivations were not very high. One was in the 6th Order Cloud River realm, while the other was in the 7th Order. In fact, there were many such people in the Cloud River battlefield. The world had a limit to its tolerance, and cultivators had their own limits. Some cultivators would remain in the Spirit Stream realm for their entire lives, unable to break through to the Cloud River realm. Even if some were lucky enough to break through to the Cloud River realm, they would be mediocre in this realm. There were 4 realms in cultivation, and each realm had its own heavenly barrier. Those who could advance bravely were all talented people. For example, the elderly man in front of him had clearly reached his own limits, and it was impossible for his cultivation to increase by too much. If the middle-aged man had the opportunity, he might have a chance to touch the true lake realm, but he would not be able to go too far. Although there was a gap in their cultivations, the one with the lower cultivation obviously had a better foundation. There was a high probability that he had opened more spirit cavities when he was in the Spirit Stream realm. This led to the fact that their strength was almost the same. Lu Yi could tell at a glance that the two were not fighting to the death, because neither of them had any murderous intent. They were just fighting. A soft fragrance floated in the air, and following the source of the fragrance, Lu Yi saw a blooming 3-petaled purple flower. He roughly understood what the two were fighting about and vaguely realized their identities. Suddenly, someone arrived and the two sides immediately stopped fighting. They even stood together and looked at Lu Yi and Pang Huanin warily. Such a posture showed that the two knew each other before, so they were able to join forces when facing the two uninvited guests, Lu Yi and Pang Huanin. Looking at Lu Yi and Pang Huanin's attire and sensing the spirit chi fluctuations they had just released, the middle-aged man and the elderly man's faces turned solemn. The man and woman who had just arrived were obviously far stronger than them. Just when the two did not know what to do, Lu Yi spoke first. Is this the territory of Ao Mountain? The middle-aged man nodded immediately. Yes, this is Ao Mountain. Where are you two from and where are you going? He subconsciously thought that Lu Yi was here to ask for directions. Little did he know that Lu Yi just wanted to make sure that he had not flown out of the territory of his sect. Jade Blood Sect Lu Yi? Lu Yi reported his identity. The middle-aged man and the elderly man were stunned, and then they put away the spirit tools in their hands awkwardly. The middle-aged man cupped his fists and said, So it's an outstanding disciple of the Jade Blood Sect. Sorry for the disrespect. He thought to himself, the name Lu Yi sounds a little familiar? Why do I feel like I've heard it before? The elderly man remembered Lu Ye's name, and his expression became extremely cautious. He smiled apologetically and said, Fellow Taoist, please forgive us. The two of us will leave now. The 3-petaled red sandalwood flower is yours. Saying so, he pulled the middle-aged man's sleeve, indicating that he should leave quickly. Chapter 851. In the cultivation world of the 9 regions, each sect had its own territory. Depending on the rank of the sect, the size of the territory it occupied varied. When the Jade Blood Sect was at its peak, it was a first-grade sect, so it could occupy a huge territory like Ao Mountain. In recent decades, although it had gradually declined and its rank had decreased, the ownership of this territory had never changed. It wasn't that no one had set their sights on Ao Mountain. Every now and then, a new sect would be born in the 9 prefectures, and these sects would need to choose a piece of land as their foundation. Therefore, a famous mountain like Ao Mountain had undoubtedly attracted the attention of many people. However, Tang Yifeng was a Spirit Sea realm cultivator, so those new sects did not dare to be presumptuous in front of him. In addition, the Jade Blood Sect had a close relationship with the Vitality Sect, so even when the Jade Blood sect was at its most desolate, no new sect dared to live in the huge Ao mountain. Until now, the Jade Blood sect showed signs of rising again, so it was impossible for such a thing to happen again. In the territory of a sect, under normal circumstances, non-sect cultivators could not casually step into it without permission. Otherwise, it would be a provocation to the dignity of a sect. This kind of thing could be big or small, and if it was not handled well, it would lead to extremely bad consequences. Every sect would send cultivators to patrol their territory to prevent any troublemakers from causing trouble. However, the Jade Blood sect did not have this ability. Before Lu Yi joined the sect, there were only Tang Yifeng and Shui Yuan in the sect. Even now, although there were many low-level disciples, they were all in the spirit stream realm, and all of them stayed in the spirit stream battlefield to cultivate and improve their cultivation. Therefore, in the past few decades, Ao Mountain was basically in a state of no one's jurisdiction. Although it belonged to the Jade Blood sect in name, anyone could set foot in it at will. In particular, it attracted many loose cultivators to stay here, and there were even loose cultivators who chose the spirit peaks to open up caves. As for the spirit flowers and herbs that grew in Ao Mountain, they were also popular among the loose cultivators because they could pick these things and exchange them for the cultivation resources they needed. The sect master knew about this, but he had never driven away these loose cultivators. It was not easy for loose cultivators to survive. No matter how many disciples there were in the various sects, at least they could receive a monthly salary and have the protection of their elders. However, loose cultivators had to obtain all their cultivation resources by themselves. Sometimes, for a little merit, they would have to fight until their heads bled. When they encountered danger, there were no elders who could protect them, and they had to fight on their own. The two people in front of him were undoubtedly rogue cultivators. Therefore, when he heard Lu Yi introduce himself, the elderly man tugged at the middle-aged man's clothes and urged him to leave quickly. Firstly, Lu Ye's fame had spread far and wide, causing the elderly man to remember Lu Ye's identity. Secondly, everything in Ao Mountain belonged to Jade Blood sect. Strictly speaking, their actions could be considered theft. Now that they had been caught red-handed by Lu Yi, they felt embarrassed and didn't have the face to stay. Just as the two were about to leave, Lu Yi suddenly called out, "Wait!" The two of them stopped in their tracks and looked at Lu Yi vigilantly. The elderly man said, "What other advice does fellow Taoist have? Coming to someone else's territory to steal spirit grasses, and being discovered, it was reasonable to say that even Lu Yi would have no problem killing them." Thinking of the various stories he had heard about Lu Yi in the past, the elderly man's heart sank. Could it be that this person wanted to kill him? If that was the case, things would be far from good. "Are you two loose cultivators?" Lu Yi asked. There was nothing wrong with admitting it. Both of them nodded. Pang Huanin looked curious. It was the first time she had heard of the term, loose cultivator. There was no such term on the Wushuang continent. However, she roughly understood what this term meant. She was puzzled. The 9 provinces was so vast and the cultivation world was so prosperous. How could there be loose cultivators? "How long have you two lived here?" Lu Yi asked again. Seeing that Lu Yi didn't seem to have the intention to make things difficult for them and seemed to be just asking questions, the elderly man's expression eased a little. He said, "This old man has lived here for almost 10 years. He had reached his limit, so even if he went to the Cloudy River battlefield, he wouldn't be able to get much benefits. Instead, he would encounter more danger. It was better for him to stay on Ao Mountain and retire." 3 years. The middle-aged man replied. His situation was somewhat different from the elderly man's. 3 years ago, he was seriously injured in the Cloudy River battlefield and had nowhere to go. He could only return to the 9 provinces to recuperate, so he stayed on Ao Mountain. In that case, the two of you should know the situation here very well. What do you want to ask, fellow Taoist? The elderly man looked cautious. How many loose cultivators are on Ao Mountain? The elderly man didn't say anything. The middle-aged man couldn't help but frown. It was obvious that they had misunderstood something. The two of you don't have to hide it. I can just ask someone else and I'll get the answer. Even if no one tells me, I have ways to find out. Sigh. The elderly man sighed. Fellow Taoist, you don't have to be like this. I'll send a message to tell them to leave Ao Mountain within a day and never set foot on Ao Mountain again. He thought that Lu Yi wanted to find out the number of loose cultivators first before chasing them away. They had been on Ao Mountain all these years and no one cared about them. However, if the Jade Blood sect really wanted to chase them away, they wouldn't be able to stay. You've misunderstood. Lu Yi saw through his thoughts and explained, I don't want to chase you away. Ao Mountain is vast and has countless spiritual peaks. If you want to stay here, it's up to you. How could he interfere with something that even the sect master didn't care about? Although he was lucky enough to join the Jade Blood sect, he knew the hardships of loose cultivators. Wuxia used to be a loose cultivator. In order to get some cultivation resources, she would leave early and return late every day to treat people in the nearby market. Fellow Taoist, are you serious? The elderly man looked at Lu Yi in astonishment. The middle-aged man also looked grateful. Of course I'm serious. Not only that, I'll also give you some benefits. Benefits? The elderly man didn't understand. Lu Yi said, soon, a sect called Ziwei Taoist Palace will be established on Ao Mountain. This sect has a large number of disciples, so they don't accept outsiders. However, if any of you are interested, you can visit the sect and have a chance to join Ziwei Taoist Palace. Ziwei Taoist Palace? The two people in front of him both looked puzzled. They had never heard of this sect before. It should be one of those new sections. However, Lu Yi said that there were a large number of disciples, so they couldn't figure out Ziwei Taoist Palace's background. Generally, new sects didn't have many disciples. Although most loose cultivators yearned to join a certain sect, they weren't so desperate that they couldn't be choosy. Sects of the 3 lower grades were only 7th grade, 8th grade and 9th grade. Because being bound by such a sect was better than living a carefree life on their own. Therefore, even though Lu Yi said it was an opportunity, the two were not tempted. Instead, they became more vigilant. Fellow Taoist, what grade is Ziwei Taoist Palace? How strong are the experts in the sect? At least 6th grade. Moreover, Ziwei Taoist Palace is a subordinate sect of my Jade Blood sect. Subordinate sect. The elderly man and the middle-aged man were both tempted. As for 6th grade or not, they didn't care. The previous subordinate sect of Jade Blood sect was Pillheart sect, which was now a 2nd grade behemoth. Although Jade Blood sect had declined, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. There were still 2 Divine Sea Realm cultivators in the sect, and it was inextricably linked to many large sects in the War Province. Jade Blood sect was showing signs of rising again. As a subordinate sect of Jade Blood sect, its future wouldn't be bad. Not to mention that it was a 6th grade sect with at least a few true Lake Realm cultivators. If they could join such a sect, it would be the dream of many rogue cultivators. Happiness came so suddenly that the two were at a loss. They wondered if Lu Yi was teasing them. Fellow Taoist, are you joking? The elderly man couldn't understand why Ziwei Taoist Palace would accept rogue cultivators like them. Whether I'm joking or not, we'll see in the future. Lu Yi didn't say anything else. He took a step forward and soared into the sky. Peng Huanin followed closely behind. Looking at the direction the two left, the elderly man and the middle-aged man no longer had any thoughts of fighting for the 3-petal red sandalwood flower. After some discussion, they decided to spread the news as soon as possible. The rogue cultivators in Ao Mountain were all in contact with each other. After spending a long time together, they had formed a tacit understanding to help each other. Now that such a good thing had happened, they naturally wouldn't hide it from others. Moreover, this kind of thing couldn't be hidden. Once Ziwei Taoist Palace was established, the news would definitely spread. Flying at a low altitude, Peng Huanin said thoughtfully, "Senior brother wants me to recruit those rogue cultivators?" Lu Yi said, "After all, you weren't born and raised in the 9 regions, so you don't know much about the 9 regions. Now that Jade Blood sect has a small population, we can't help much. Recruiting a group of local cultivators won't do you any harm. These rogue cultivators have different origins. Some are not qualified enough to join a sect, some are homeless people whose original sect was destroyed, and some are lucky enough to get on the path of cultivation. But in any case, their lives are extremely difficult. Most of them won't miss the opportunity to join a sect. How to select the character of these rogue cultivators shouldn't be a problem for you." Peng Huanin nodded. "Although the Wushuang continent isn't as rich and prosperous as the 9 regions, we've seen a lot of the complexity of human nature. Senior brother, you don't have to worry about this. I won't let those with ulterior motives enter the Taoist palace. Well, you only need to remember one thing. These rogue cultivators can be used, but you can't put them in important positions. Senior brother is right. I'll remember it." Suddenly, she remembered something. "Senior brother, you said that the Taoist palace is a 6th rank sect. What do you mean?" "I'll have to tell you about the ranking of sects in the 9 regions." Lu Yi told her everything he knew. Peng Huanin was puzzled. "According to senior brother, our Taoist palace is at most a 7th rank sect. It can't reach the 6th rank. A 6th rank sect must have a true Lake Realm cultivator. This was the most basic requirement. Chapter 852. The grading of the sects and clans in the 9 prefectures was not something that could be interfered with. It was all up to the heavens. This was why the sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge had sent their disciples to hunt Lu Yi down at the Spirit Stream battlefield after learning that the Jade Blood sect had gained a new disciple. If Lu Yi was killed, the Jade Blood sect would be completely removed from the sect grading. The Myriad Devil Ridge was very wary of this great enemy that had caused great losses to the Myriad Devil Ridge several decades ago. He had even caused several first-rank sects to fall in rank. Unfortunately, all their efforts had been for naught. Lu Yi had become famous after the battle at the Spirit Stream battlefield, and the Jade Blood sect had remained. There were many rigid criteria for the grading of sections. For example, the top 3 sects had to have a Divine Ocean Realm cultivator. The middle 3 sects had to have a true Lake Realm cultivator. As for the lower 3 sects, they had to have a certain number of Cloud River Realm cultivators. However, the Divine Ocean Realm cultivators in the sect did not necessarily mean that they would be in the top 3 sections. The heavens had their own set of criteria. For example, the Jade Blood sect's sect master was in the Divine Ocean Realm. However, because the sect only had 2 disciples, Lu Yi and Shui Yuan, they were only in the 9th rank. Even now, the Jade Blood sect had not been promoted to the middle 3 ranks. This was because the overall strength of the Jade Blood sect had not reached the middle 3 ranks. Lu Yi had told the 2 loose cultivators that the Purple Star Dao Palace was in the 6th rank. This was obviously not right. Therefore, you need to reach the true Lake Realm before the sect is established. Lu Yi said, the grading of sects is done once every 3 years. There is only one exception, and that is when a new sect is established. Pang Huanin understood. I understand. You alone might not be able to reach the true Lake Realm. If the Dao Palace can have 5 people reach the true Lake Realm, it will definitely be in the 6th rank. What are the benefits of having a high grade? Pang Huanin asked. The biggest benefit is the choice of the Dao Palace's encampment at the Spirit Stream battlefield. Lu Yi then explained the situation at the Spirit Stream battlefield to her in detail. Pang Huanin immediately understood the implications. The Spirit Stream realm was the first realm for cultivators. It was also the realm that laid the foundation. If the disciples could be in an environment rich in spirit chi, they would undoubtedly be able to obtain greater benefits. If the Ziwei Daoist Palace wanted to continue its legacy in the 9 states, then the foundation of the Spirit Stream battlefield must be solid. As the most powerful human cultivator on the Peerless continent, Pang Huanin had obtained the Peerless Origin power. She was extremely talented, and she had already reached the peak of the Cloud River tier. However, due to the limitations of heaven and earth, she was unable to reach the threshold of the true lake tier. However, things were different here in the 9 continents. She could already feel that the bottleneck that was troubling her was loosening up. Therefore, she was confident that she could advance to the true lake stage in a short period of time. As for the 5 people that Lu Yi mentioned, there weren't many 9th order Cloud River realm cultivators in the Dao Palace, but they weren't few either. Gathering 5 of them and finding a way to help them reach the true lake realm shouldn't be a problem. A rank 6 grade was basically stable. Furthermore, it was not easy for a sect to establish itself. Even if Pang Huanin had chosen the Holy Ji Palace's territory, the Holy Ji Palace would still have to send people over to build a foundation for their own sect. No matter how efficient the cultivators were, it would still take them a month or 2 to complete the task. Therefore, it would take at least 1 or 2 months for the Dao Palace to establish itself in the 9 states. This period of time was enough for Pang Huanin and the other cultivators to advance to the true lake realm. The 2 talked as they flew. Half a day later they landed on a spirit peak and Pang Huanin said, "Let's do it here." With this place as the center, there are 30 spirit peaks nearby. There were tens of thousands of cultivators in the Dao Palace, so 30 peaks were more than enough. Moreover, the cultivators in the Dao Palace were all at the Spirit Stream realm and Cloud River realm. Once they set foot in the 9 states, most of them would enter the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield. I'll have to trouble senior brother to report back to Sect Master Tang and ask for his permission. Lu Yi nodded, let's go back. However, there was probably no problem with this matter. Since the Sect Master had allowed Pang Huanin to choose freely, as long as her request wasn't too excessive, the Sect Master would agree. After all, there were many spirit peaks in Ao Mountain that were idle. He led Pang Huanin back to the Zhengshou Peak, but he didn't see the sect master or his second senior sister. Senior brother, I'll have to return to the Peerless Continent first and inform the Holy Ji Palace cultivators about what happened here so that they can make preparations. Also, I'll have to pick a few people and bring them here to advance to the True Lake Realm. I'll have to trouble senior brother when the time comes. No problem. Lu Yi nodded. Pang Huanin could now freely travel between the 9 prefectures and the Peerless Continent with the help of the Jade Blood Sect's Tianji Pillar. However, if they wanted to advance to the True Lake Realm, they would need the help of some spirit pills. He could ask his second senior sister about this matter. Now that she was in the Divine Sea Realm, it would be a piece of cake for her to solve the problem of advancing to the True Lake Realm from the Cloud River Realm. After thinking about it, Lu Yi didn't look for his second senior sister. Instead, he flew to the Mingxin Peak. He had already acknowledged Madame Yun as his master, but he lacked a formal ceremony. Now that he had returned, he naturally had to pay her a visit. However, it was a pity that he didn't see his master this time. He only saw her avatar Xiao Dai. Xiao Dai told Lu Yi that his master had been repairing the dragon throne with the help of the sect master recently and hadn't shown up for a long time. As for the progress of the repair, Xiao Dai didn't know. Although she was only his master's avatar, if the master didn't share her knowledge, she wouldn't be able to pry into the master's thoughts. Lu Yi told Xiao Dai about Pang Huanin's situation in detail and asked her to inform the sect master when she met him. Xiao Dai naturally agreed. After leaving the Mingxin Peak, Lu Yi returned to his Jade Bamboo Peak. Only then did he see his second senior sister. It turned out that his second senior sister was hiding here to teach Wuxia about medical cultivation. Lu Yi didn't disturb her. He originally wanted to cultivate to the peak of the Cloud River Realm in the Cloudy River battlefield and rearrange the array in the spiritual land. Then he would advance to the True Lake Realm and leave the Cloudy River battlefield. However, man proposes, God disposes. The migration of the Wuxia continent caused all the cultivators to be expelled from the Cloudy River battlefield. Although he could continue to wait for the day when the Cloudy River battlefield reopened, no one knew when that day would come. On second thought, he had already laid a solid foundation in the spiritual land. When the disciples of his sect entered the spiritual land, they would be protected by the wolf pack. He wouldn't have to worry so much. It was more important to advance to the True Lake Realm. In the end, a cultivator's cultivation was still the most important. He still had a lot of golden spirit lots left, enough for him to advance to the True Lake Realm. Thinking of this, Lu Yi made a decision. However, just as he was about to use the golden spirit lots to cultivate, a loud voice suddenly came from the Jade Blood Sect. Where are the people of the Jade Blood Sect? The voice was activated by spiritual energy and spread in all directions. Everyone within 100 miles could hear it clearly. Lu Yi, who had just sat down and prepared to cultivate, raised his eyebrows. It had been several years since Yang Kai had joined Blue Blood Sect, and although he hadn't spent much time in the sect, he had never met anyone from any other sect. Only once did the headmaster of 3 Holy Courtyard come to the sect and fight with the sect master over the matter of the headmaster kidnapping one of his sect's disciples. Lu Yi couldn't help but feel suspicious. Who was this person that dared to come to the Jade Blood Sect and shout? The sect master was currently helping his master repair the dragon throne at the Clear Heart Peak. He obviously wouldn't be able to come out for a short period of time. Lu Ye's heart moved. He hurriedly got up and opened the door. He saw Shui Yuan rushing towards the Jade Blood Sect. Hua Xi, who appeared with her, looked in that direction. Her expression was the same as Lu Ye's, filled with confusion. On the other side, Giant Armor, who was cultivating, was also alarmed and appeared. Although the 3 of them didn't know what was going on, they all moved and followed Shui Yuan closely. After a while, they rushed to the Jade Blood Sect and saw a young man in silver armor waiting for them. Seeing the young man's attire, Shui Yuan couldn't help but frown. The aura of a Divine Sea Realm cultivator also leaked out intentionally or unintentionally. The person's strength was obviously not at the Divine Sea Realm. He was only at the True Lake Realm. Feeling the pressure from Shui Yuan, his expression couldn't help but become serious. He cupped his fists and saluted, "Greetings, Senior Sister Shui Yuan." Shui Yuan nodded slightly with a solemn expression. "What's the matter?" The young man turned his hand and a bronze token appeared in his palm. He raised it high and said in a sonorous voice, "I am Zhao Che of the Grand Sky City Dispatch Department. I've been ordered to come here." Jade Blood Sect received the order. Although Shui Yuan was a little reluctant in front of this bronze token, she had to withdraw her Divine Sea Realm aura. She cupped her fists and listened respectfully. Zhao Che said in a clear voice, "The Elder Committee has ordered the Jade Blood Sect to send at least one disciple to Grand Sky City within 3 days, and no limit to the number of disciples. There must be no mistakes in this matter, and anyone who disobeys will be killed without mercy." Shui Yuan sighed in her heart. She knew that what was supposed to come had come. She handed it over with both hands. Jade Blood Sect's Shui Yuan received the order. Zhao Che placed the bronze token in Shui Yuan's hand and saluted again. "Senior sister, please don't blame me. I'm just following orders." As he spoke, he looked behind Shui Yuan and his gaze stopped on Lu Yi for a moment. He said in a low voice, "Deputy Alliance Leader Pang has already done his best. However, it's not good to delay too much. I thought that I could delay for a while, but I didn't expect that there would be some changes at the Cloudy River battlefield. Now that a storm is coming at the various passes, this matter can only be brought forward. As for the selection of people here, Senior Sister should discuss it with Sect Leader Tang. However, they must arrive at Grand Sky City within 3 days." His previous tough attitude was because he came on behalf of the Grand Sky Alliance. Now, he reminded her in a low voice because he was standing on his own side. "I understand. Yes. Goodbye." Zhao Che cupped his fists and soared into the sky. He really came in a hurry and left in a hurry. Shui Yuan stood in place holding the bronze token. She was speechless for a long time. Lu Yi and the others were a little confused. However, just by looking at Shui Yuan's state, they knew that something must have happened that she didn't want to see. After a long while, Shui Yuan sighed. She turned around and looked at Lu Yi, then at Huaxia and Jianghu. She said, "There are some things that I have to tell you. Click and download the best book chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud." Chapter 853. Although she said that, Shui Yuan's expression was very conflicted. She did not speak for a long time as if she was considering her words, or there was something she found hard to say. "Third Senior Sister, just say what you want. We're not outsiders," Lu Yi said. He had also heard Zhao Che's order clearly. He needed the Blue Blood Sect to select at least one person and have them rush to a place called Grand Sky City within 3 days to await orders. Even though he wasn't sure why Shui Yuan, who was in the Spirit Ocean stage, was so respectful towards Zhao Che, who was in the True Lake stage, and he didn't even know what kind of place Grand Sky City was. However, Zhao Che's gaze lingered on him for a moment, which made Lu Yi feel that this matter had something to do with him. Hearing Lu Ye's words, Shui Yuan sighed again. Only then did she say, "In the cultivation world of the 9 provinces, the vast Sky Alliance and the myriad Demon Ridge have been at odds with each other for thousands of years. Even those independent cultivators who do not belong to any sect cannot avoid this." Independent cultivators did not belong to any sect, but they had their own factions. It could be said that any cultivator who had a battlefield imprint belonged to a faction. For example, the 2 independent cultivators that Lu Yi had met in Mount Tung were definitely from the vast Sky Alliance's faction. If they were independent cultivators from the myriad Demon Ridge's faction, they definitely would not dare to stay in Mount Tung. When you were in the Spirit Stream tier, you were in the Spirit Stream battlefield. You used your own sect's encampment as your foundation to fight against enemies from all sides. When you reached the Cloud River tier, although you no longer have your sect's encampment, this kind of fighting still continued, Shui Yuan continued. And outside of these 2 battlefields, the entire 9 provinces is the true largest battlefield. It's just that you've never come into contact with it before. It's not that your cultivation is insufficient, but this matter has been suppressed by the old man. Of course, that Vice Alliance leader Pang of the Vitality sect also played a huge role. If it were not for his favoritism, the old man alone would not have been able to suppress this matter. Lu Yi frowned. "What matter?" Shui Yuan replied, "Join the military provincial guards." Military provincial guards? The 9 provinces, the 9 great continents, the Heaven continent, the Green continent, the War continent, the Thunder continent, the Ding continent, the Cloud continent, the Mist continent, the Serenity continent, and the Tsang continent. Among the 9 great provinces, the Heaven continent is in the middle. The other 8 provinces are divided into 8 extremes bordering each other. Among them, the Green province, Mist province, and Tsang province belong to the Haotian alliance. The Cloud Province, Thunder Province, and Nether Province belong to the Myriad Demons Ridge. As for the Heaven Continent, the Ding Province, and our Military Province, they don't have complete ownership. Inside the main hall, Shui Yuan's voice sounded faintly. Lu Yi and the others listened attentively. Lu Yi only knew the names of the 9 continents, but he never knew that the war province was the place where the 2 camps were fighting, nor did he know who the other continents belonged to. It was mainly because he had too little contact with the 9 regions. Before joining the Blue Blood sect, he had been a slave miner in Evil Moon Valley, struggling to survive every day. He had no time to pay attention to the general trend of the world, nor did he have the means to do so. After joining the Blue Blood sect, he spent 99% of his time at the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield. Occasionally he would return to the sect, but he would be in a hurry. Not to mention anything else, when he accompanied Pang Huanin to tour Mount Tung, he didn't even know how far Mount Tung covered. He even had to ask the wandering cultivators. Just as he said to Pang Huanin, that was the first time he had left the main peak of the sect for 15 kilometers. He had just barely understood the matter of Mount Tung. It wasn't that he was ignorant. It was just that the situation of the Blue Blood sect was special. He didn't have many senior brothers and sisters to impart such common knowledge to him. For example, the other sects of the 9 regions had many disciples of all realms. All kinds of things happened. Under the influence of the disciples, they could more or less understand many things without experiencing it themselves. Lu Yi couldn't do that. He had to experience it himself or listen to Shui Yuan's explanation. Only then could he understand some things. Now that Shui Yuan mentioned it, Lu Yi knew that 6 of the 9 regions were completely controlled by the 2 camps. The other 3, including the military province where the Blue Blood sect was located, were the places where the 2 camps were fighting over. The Haotian Alliance is a collective name. Everyone who comes from this camp is a cultivator of the Haotian Alliance. However, the 9 regions are vast, and the number of cultivators of the Haotian Alliance is as many as the stars in the sky. It is difficult for such a huge force to be unified. Therefore, each continent has its own continent guards. For example, our War Province has the War Province Guards. The Qing Province has the Qing Province Guards. The situation is roughly the same in the Wanmo Ridge. Where do the continent guards come from? Naturally, they were recruited from various large and small sects and families. Every sect and family that has a foothold in the 9 states has the responsibility to provide military strength to the state guards. My Jade Blood sect is naturally no exception. The sect leader and I are both military state guards, and we hold positions within. Hearing this, Lu Yi roughly understood. So the War Province Guards want us to send someone over in 3 days? Shui Yuan nodded. The ranks of the sects are different and the number of disciples in the sect is different. The number of continent guards that need to be recruited is naturally different. Some sects have many disciples so they need to recruit more. Some sects have few disciples so they need to recruit less. However, in general, from the Cloud River tier to the True Lake tier, and then to the Spirit Ocean tier, a sect needs to provide troops to the continent guards according to a certain ratio. They need to be dispatched to jointly protect the War Province and not let the War Province fall into the hands of the Wanmo Ridge. Lu Yi agreed with this. Since we are under the protection of the War Province, we should contribute our strength. The situation of our Blue Blood sect is special. Before you were here, there was only me and the old man. Therefore, the War Province Guards didn't ask much of our sect. In addition to the care of Vice Alliance leader Pang, the old man and I only needed to take some time and take turns to listen to orders. Little junior brother, do you still remember the Evil Moon Valley? I will never forget it. That time, the old man was carrying out the mission of the War Province Guards. Lu Yi nodded in understanding. Compared to a few years ago, our sect has many more disciples, and the 3 of you have advanced to the Cloud River tier. Logically speaking, it is indeed time to send people to the War Province Guards. In fact, when you had just advanced to the Cloud River tier, someone in Vast Sky City had already mentioned this matter. However, the old man knew, and ordinary people didn't want to easily offend him. With his obstruction and with Vice Alliance leader Pang's favoritism, this matter didn't succeed. Lu Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. It sounds like someone wants me to join the War Province Guards as soon as possible? Joining the War Province Guards to protect the War Province Haotian Alliance's defensive line was obviously more dangerous than cultivating on the Cloud River battlefield. This was because the enemies the War Province Guards encountered were not like the ones on the Cloud River battlefield, where they were all cultivators of the same tier. The environment of the War Province Guards was even worse. If one was unlucky, it was possible to encounter True Lake tier or even Spirit Ocean tier cultivators. The sect leader's obstruction and Vice Alliance leader Pang's secret favoritism were all a type of protection for him. Lu Yi really wanted to know who had spent so much effort to keep an eye on him, a mere Cloud River tier cultivator. To be able to have such thoughts and to be able to facilitate this matter, their strength and status would definitely not be low. Shui Yuan didn't answer this matter. Perhaps she didn't know, or perhaps she didn't want to talk about it. She just said, because of the war 30 years ago, there are actually many sects in the 9 regions that don't like us. Lu Yi was not clear about the battle 30 years ago. He only knew that his eldest senior brother had made a grave mistake, causing many elites who had followed him to die in battle, causing a considerable number of sects to suffer unimaginable losses. His eldest senior brother was gone, but the Jade Blood sect still existed, so it was natural that people would bear grudges. However, relatively speaking, the Jade Blood sect also had many friends. When Lu Yi had been hunted down on the Spirit Stream battlefield, many people he did not know had been ordered by the sect to escort him. This had given him the chance to set foot on the Golden Light Summit and wait for his eldest senior sister and 4th senior brother. Now, there is a problem with the Cloud River battlefield. All the Cloud River tier cultivators have been expelled from the Cloud River battlefield, and large numbers of cultivators have flooded into the place where the 2 sides are fighting. It is probably because of this reason that Vice Alliance leader Pang can no longer be biased, and can only allow the elders of Vast Sky City to issue the transfer order. What will come, 2nd senior sister does not need to worry. I will accept this transfer order, Lu Yi said. Previously, he had still been thinking about where he should go to cultivate after leaving the Cloud River battlefield, but he had not thought that there was no need for him to think too much. Someone had already arranged the path ahead for him. Perhaps there were people who did not have good intentions, but this was ultimately something that could not be avoided. To be able to suppress it for such a long time was already the limit. Moreover, Lu Yi himself did not reject this kind of thing. Ever since he had reached the Spirit Stream tier, he had fought against the cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge in all kinds of ways, and had always been targeted by the Myriad Demons Ridge. He had passed through many storms, so joining the military prefecture guards and continuing to fight against the Myriad Demons Ridge was nothing to him. I will go too. Giant Armor suddenly said in a droning voice. Let's go together. Hua Xiai smiled slightly. The transfer order said that at least 1 person would be transferred, and this was only the lower limit. There was no limit to the upper limit, so there was definitely no problem for 3 people to go together, and the military prefecture guards would definitely welcome it. You 2 don't need to go. We know nothing about the situation over there. I will go and scout the way first, and when I have a firm foothold, it will not be too late for you 2 to come back. There were people who could not wait for him to join the military prefecture guards, and clearly did not have good intentions. If he went alone he could still be flexible, but if Giant Armor and Hua Xiai came together, the situation would only be more troublesome. Moreover, ever since he started cultivating he had always been on the 2 battlefields. He had not experienced what the 9 provinces was like, so he could take this opportunity to go out and take a look, and see the true scenery of the 9 provinces. Compared to the 2 battlefields, the 9 provinces was the true stage for cultivators to display themselves. This stage was much wider than the 2 battlefields. Giant Armor shook his head. Lu Yi glared. It's decided then. Shaking his head was useless. He looked at Hua Xiai again. You are not allowed to go either. Hua Xiai curled her lips. Shui Yuan could not help but laugh. Don't think that joining the military prefecture guards is some kind of hard work. Actually, joining the military prefecture guards has some benefits. Lu Yi could not help but be interested. What benefits? Chapter 854. After joining the military state guard, depending on the rank of the soldier, you will receive a monthly salary of different grades. That monthly salary is not spirit pills or spirit stones, but rather, battle achievements. Shui Yuan slowly said. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. Battle achievements, these 2 words were extremely attractive to the cultivators of the 9 provinces, because battle achievements could be exchanged for spirit sticks directly from the Tianji treasury. This was one of the methods for cultivators to quickly increase their cultivation. Moreover, it was in the form of a monthly salary. In other words, after joining the military state guard, you would receive battle achievements every month. Just this point alone made the cultivators in the 9 provinces who wanted to join the military state guard countless times. With this as an attraction, the military state guard did not need to select people from the various large sects at all. The cultivators of the various sects and families in the 9 provinces, when their cultivation reached a certain level, would all actively choose to join the military state guard. Only the Jade Blood Sect situation was a bit special. Lu Yi had never known of the military state guard's existence before, so he had never thought of joining. The monthly salary is only the foundation. If you carry out missions for the military state guard or kill enemies in battle, you can receive battle achievements. They're such a good thing. That's why the War Province Guards don't only have cultivators above the Cloud River tier, but also many in the Spirit Stream tier. Some of the disciples of the sects will plan ahead, and join the War Province Guards as early as the Spirit Stream tier. They will use this opportunity to gain battle merits and make plans for the future. Of course, Spirit Stream Realm cultivators were not very strong, and their ability to protect themselves was weak, so even if they joined the military state guard, they would not be assigned missions that were too dangerous. Most of them would stay in one place and cooperate with cultivators of higher cultivation to defend against external enemies. Moreover, they would not stay there for long. Most of them would obtain some battle achievements and return to the Spirit Stream battlefield to cultivate. Relatively speaking, it was more dangerous than the Spirit Stream battlefield, but the battle achievements were incomparable to the Spirit Stream battlefield. The more Shui Yuan talked about the military state guard, the more excited Lu Yi became. Originally, he did not have any objections to joining the military state guard, but now he was looking forward to it. However, he also knew that if he really joined the military state guard, his future days would not be as carefree as they were in the Cloud River battlefield. Up until now, whether it was in the Spirit Stream battlefield or the Cloud River battlefield, the enemies he had encountered were all cultivators of the same realm. However, after entering the military prefecture guards, he did not only meet cultivators of the same realm. Those true Lake Stage and Divine Sea Stage cultivators were also active in the front lines of the confrontation between the two factions. Little junior brother, are you confident that you can advance to the true Lake Stage within 3 days? Shui Yuan asked. Lu Yi shook his head. I just broke through to the 9th order, there's still a long way to go before I can break through to the true lake realm. The golden spiritual stick in his hand was enough, but the time was tight. 3 days was definitely not enough. That's a pity, Shui Yuan said. If Lu Yi could advance to the true lake realm before joining the military state guards, then his ability to protect himself would be greatly increased. Moreover, after joining the military state guards, everyone would have their own position. The higher one's cultivation, the higher the starting position, and naturally the higher the monthly salary. A Cloud River 9th Order cultivator and a true Lake Realm cultivator would receive completely different treatment. Fortunately, Lu Yi was not far from the true lake stage. Second senior sister, I want to know how I should cultivate when I advance to the true lake stage. The world energy in the 9 continents is not dense, and is not even comparable to the Spirit Stream battlefield. Wouldn't the efficiency of cultivation be too low if I absorb world energy like this? His main cultivation method was not to absorb world energy, but if the world energy was dense enough, it could also increase his cultivation efficiency. How did the true lake stage and divine sea stage cultivators in the 9 continents cultivate? This was something he needed to understand right now. Originally, he had planned to ask his second senior sister about it after he advanced to the true lake stage, but now that Grand Sky City had issued a transfer order, he had to rush there within 3 days. It would be difficult for him to have the opportunity to ask his second senior sister about it in the future. Taking this opportunity, of course, he had to understand. Since Hua Ci and Giant Armor were here, he could let them listen. Cultivation above the true lake stage consumes a huge amount of resources. Shui Yuan said slowly. Lu Yi and the others listened attentively and finally understood how cultivators above the true lake stage cultivated. He was secretly speechless. He only knew one thing before, and that was that cultivators above the true lake stage consumed a lot of resources. As for how it was consumed, he was not clear. Only now did he understand. No wonder Shui Yuan had been stuck at the true lake stage. Even if she was talented, it was difficult for her to advance. It was only when Lu Yi brought back a large amount of resources for the Jade Blood Sect that Shui Yuan broke through to the Divine Sea stage. All of this was caused by the lack of resources on the Jade Blood Sect's side. Before Lu Yi came, the entire Jade Blood Sect only had Shui Yuan and the Sect Master. Even if she was on duty at the War Province Guards and received a monthly salary, it was still a drop in the bucket for her cultivation needs. From the looks of it, before leaving she had to make some preparations. Afterwards, Shui Yuan told Lu Yi many things about the War Province Guards. Lu Yi memorized them one by one. These were all accumulated from her own experience. Who knows, they might be of great help to Lu Yi in the future. Shui Yuan only stopped when the sky turned dark. She had already warned her. The chicks would eventually leave the nest and fly into the sky. Previously, the sect master did not want Lu Yi to join the war province guards early. On one hand, the sect master did not want Lu Yi to join the war province guards early. On the other hand, it was for Lu Ye's safety. However, as Lu Ye's cultivation increased, she would eventually have to take this step. This was something she could not avoid. Hua Xi in giant armor returned to the Emerald Bamboo Peak, while Lu Yi followed Shui Yuan to the treasury of the Jade Blood Sect. A while later, he arrived before the Pillar of Heavenly Secrets and connected his mind to the Treasury of Heavenly Secrets. He took out large amounts of resources from the treasury of the Jade Blood Sect and sold them to the Treasury of Heavenly Secrets. His merit points were increasing at an extremely exaggerated rate. Only 4 hours later did Lu Yi emerge from the Hall of Heavenly Secrets, shooting towards the Emerald Bamboo Peak in a flash. He entered his bamboo hut and sat down with his legs crossed. Hu Per and Yi were not present. The former was with giant armor while the latter was with Hua Xi. Lu Yi held a 10-point map in his hand, investigating the location of Great Heaven City. He had just purchased this 10-point map from the Treasury of Heavenly Secrets. It was a 10-point map of the entire 9 provinces. It was extremely expensive, but it was worth it. He would need this when he moved through the 9 provinces in the future. From the 10-point map, the entire 9 provinces were divided into 9 large plates, which were the 9 provinces. The Green Province, Mist Province and Song Province were blue. Clearly it was just as Shui Yuan had said. These 3 provinces were under the control of the Grand Heaven Alliance. The Cloud Province, Thunder Province and Serenity Province were red. The Heaven Province, War Province and Ding Province were alternating between red and blue, indicating the conflict between the 2 great factions. Lu Yi glanced over it roughly. Based on what Shui Yuan had said before, he gained a slight understanding of the situation across the 9 provinces. Then he looked at the map of the War Province. 12 passes stood where the red and blue lines intersected. They were like towering mountains, forming the front line of defense for the Grand Heaven Alliance. These were the 12 passes of the War Province. Every single pass was guarded by a tremendous number of cultivators. After the 12 stages, there was a lofty city that stood tall. It was Vast Sky City. This city was the central hub of the War Province Guards. All sorts of orders and decisions regarding war were passed down from here. Zhao Che from before came from the command department of Great Heaven City. There was also a group of elders in Great Heaven City, led by Pang Zhen of the Vitality sect. The members were all Divine Sea Realm cultivators from the various large sects of the War Province. The sect leader, Tang Yifeng, was also a member of the group of elders. Logically speaking, he was qualified to live in Great Heaven City and become one of the decision-makers. However, the sect leader had never been involved in these matters. Because of the war decades ago, the reputation of the Jade Blood sect had plummeted. Many powerhouses from other sects hated the Jade Blood sect. Under such circumstances, how could the sect leader be disliked by others? Over the years, although he held the position of an elder in the group of elders, he had never made any decisions. He only followed orders and acted in such a low-key manner that the world had almost forgotten him. If Lu Yi hadn't appeared out of nowhere and made the sect leader see the hope of the Jade Blood sect rising again, he wouldn't have changed his low-key style. Now his well-respected image had completely collapsed. The large sects of the War Province all turned pale at the mention of Tang Yifeng. What Lu Yi needed to do now was to rush to Great Heaven City to report in 3 days, enter the War Province guards there and confirm his position. Then he would see which pass Great Heaven City would send him to. These things were not up to him to decide. He could only resign himself to fate. However, there was clearly someone in Great Heaven City keeping an eye on him. This time, as soon as there was a problem in the Cloud River battlefield, the transfer order came. Could be seen how efficient they were. Therefore, Lu Yi understood that when he arrived at the War Province Guards, the task assigned to him would definitely not be good. It was useless to think too much. It was more important to work hard to improve his cultivation. Although time was tight, it was still enough for him to use a golden spiritual stick. Calling back Yi and Hu Po, Lu Yi crushed a golden spiritual stick and sat upright to cultivate. After a day and a night, the spiritual stick's effect was exhausted. Lu Yi got up and pushed open the door. "Let's go," he softly said, and his figure soared into the sky. There was no need to say goodbye to anyone. There would be a day when they would meet again. It was normal for cultivators to separate and join up. On Defender Peak, Shui Yuan opened her eyes and looked in the direction Lu Yi left in. She slowly got up. On Bright Heart Peak, two figures stood. It was the sect leader and Madame Yun. Did you find out who it was? Madame Yun's voice was cold. When the transfer order came, Lu Yi could feel that he was being watched by someone. How could Madame Yun not feel it? Although she and the sect leader had been working hard to repair the Dragon Emperor these days, it was not that they did not pay attention to what was happening outside. 4 divine ocean realm cultivators like them, as long as they wanted to, nothing could escape their senses. The sect leader shook his head. We only have a rough idea. It's just those few sections. Is it related to Pillheart sect? It shouldn't be related. Although Pillheart sect has cut ties with our sect, they wouldn't do something like this. I don't care who it is. If he dares to harm my disciple, I will make him pay with his blood. He's doing things within the rules. I don't care what rules he has. I only have one disciple. If something happens to him, no one else will live. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.